Philadelphia, a Beasley Media Group station, broadcasting live from the Comcast Business Studios, powering possibilities. 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com. Now, Andrew Salchunas, 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
And a good Friday morning, Philadelphia. I'm Andrew Salchunas. It's the midday show here on 97.5 The Fanatic. Hope everybody's enjoying their Friday so far, getting set for the weekend. Oh, boy, a weekend in which I'm not coming back next week, so I'm on vacation. As Ray said yesterday before the show, yesterday's show was the trap game show. I think we got through it. You know, it was basically like the 2022 Eagles, where they just kept on getting through no matter what the trap game situation was. We got through it. And now today might be the look-ahead game. No. Well, man, this is a Super Bowl winning program here, so we're not looking ahead. All right? Vacation week coming up, though, so I'm excited for it. All right, so here's what I want to do today. Today, I want you to be GM. And I want you to be GM of any sport. But we're going to try to go in order here. Like, I'll explain what I have in mind today. So, we're in the middle of off-season talk with the NFL, with the Eagles. It's the beginning of off-season talk with the Eagles. We are at the tail end of off-season talk with the Phillies. We are in the middle of the season for the Sixers and Flyers, but as we watch the Sixers and Flyers, we're always saying, okay, what can they do next, right? The Flyers are in the beginning of a rebuild, or maybe in this case a retool, because, look, they might be a playoff team, right? So what can they do next year maybe to uplift them and get them further along? What can the Sixers do with a healthy, hopefully, Joel Embiid next season and all the cap space that they have available? So I want you to play GM, but I'm going to take a different route on it. Because usually when shows like this are done, your original thought is, okay, I'm going to make a trade for this player. I'm going to draft this player. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. No. I don't even want names today. Here's what I want to do today. Now, hear me out. Listen close. It's going to be an exercise where we try to figure out what is the correct way in today's modern era of sports, all right? I want to make that clear. Modern era of sports. What is the best way to build a franchise in each of the four respective major sports? So today we're going to start with the NFL, right? The Philadelphia Eagles are a team that just made it to the Super Bowl 1 year ago, and unfortunately had a major collapse in the season that followed. A lot of talk yesterday was about quarterbacks and the trends and how the second you think you find your guy, you're making him the highest paid player in the NFL until the next quarterback gets paid, right? And we started talking about whether or not that trend may change at some point. Look at what the Seattle Seahawks did yesterday. They guaranteed Geno Smith's contract. They're barely paying him any money. And they're going, all right, we're going to see if we can get anything out of Geno Smith. Look at the weapons we have offensively. We have a new coach here, so obviously it's not like they're going to kind of go into a rebuild, but they're a pretty decent team in terms of talent, at least offensively, and they have some stuff to work on defensively. They got some nice young players on that team defensively. So I want to find out how you should build an NFL roster to start, okay? Now, obviously, the teams that are winning majority of the times are the teams with Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady. So an easy answer is find an all-time GOAT quarterback, right? Like, I know that's right, that's easy, but it's not easy to actually make it happen. But I love having this conversation because I think about the Eagles, and I think about how we love the Philadelphia Eagles, but I don't think you truly love the team. Hear me out. We hate that they don't value linebackers in this city. We hate that they don't value safety in this city, especially a city that had Brian Dawkins not that long ago donning the Eagles jersey, right? We like that the offensive line and defensive line is always pretty good, but we don't like that they're usually spending first-round picks on it because that's not the sexy first-round draft pick. We don't like that they don't run the football all that much, even though in the modern era of football, they don't run as much on any team. But then again, I can make the case come playoff time. Look at the final four teams that remained. The Chiefs, yeah, I know, Patrick Mahomes is the GOAT. They ran the football with Isaiah Pacheco. They really just did it in the Super Bowl because they were playing from behind, and he fumbled the ball twice, losing it one time. The 49ers, forget Christian McCaffrey. They ran the football before McCaffrey was there. That's a Kyle Shanahan offense. And that was before Brock Purdy. They ran the football with Jimmy Garoppolo. Baltimore Ravens ran the football. Now, a lot of it had to do with the threat of Lamar Jackson as well, but that helps when you have Jalen Hurts. And the Detroit Lions, they didn't shy from it. That was their style of offense. They had Amon-Ra St. Brown. Let's not ignore that. Let's not ignore Sam Laporta, a very tremendous pass-catching tight end. But they ran the football. That was their identity. So, no, it's not starting with a big back, but it's also realizing that there is a value to running the football because that helps out your quarterbacks, whether it's Patrick Mahomes or Brock Purdy, right? Look at it. Brock Purdy almost won the Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes comes from behind, they win. So I want to talk about roster construction today and what you think in today's modern NFL, and then eventually we'll get into the NBA, and eventually we'll get into Major League Baseball, and eventually we'll get into the NHL, because let's face it, times are changing in all these sports. Major League Baseball, like, I'm excited to get into the baseball one later on this show because the days of, oh, man, get 4 aces, those days are gone, right? Those days don't really happen all that much. Now you're hoping to get guys that can give you 5 to 6 quality innings, and then you have a stud-filled bullpen that can get you through the high-leverage situations. Kyle Schwarber's a leadoff hitter for the Philadelphia Phillies. It's not the same way that it used to be where it was the fast guy that just put the ball in play. Right? Times have changed. But then again, in that same breath, sometimes time has changed for the worse. Right? Like I mentioned, running the football. The NFL, it seems like it's such a pass-happy league now, and it's let's get all the best wide receivers we can get. The final 4 teams that remained ran the football effectively. So today's a day where we kind of put the GM cap on and what you believe is the right way to build a team in each of the 4 respective major sports. And we'll start with football. And this is a day, like, look, I'm having some fun right now. So we talked about yesterday, NCAA 25 is going to be coming out this summer, right? When I think of sports video games, I think about all the fantasy drafts I used to do and how I used to play GM, right, before actually playing. Like, I was a loser, right? Like, I wanted to do the fantasy draft. I didn't want to just play with the Phillies roster. I wanted to get Ichiro on my team, right? Like, I wanted to do all that kind of stuff. When am I going to draft these players? Like, I love these kind of things because it makes you think a little bit. It's not just, oh, get the best players. No, you got to think this one through. So when it comes to roster construction in the NFL, what do you think is actually the best way to go about it? And what you have to consider is, yeah, you're going to allocate your resources in certain areas and maybe ignore other areas. Should you completely ignore linebacker? No. But part of the reason why the Eagles do ignore linebacker is the fact that they allocate so much to the offense and defensive line. And that's something that they've been doing for 20-plus years, and they're one of the more successful franchises in the NFL. We had the conversation about quarterbacks. If you're not so sure that your quarterback can win you a Super Bowl, but they are talented and they fit prototypes like Justin Herbert, should you pay that quarterback, or should you go into the draft and have a cheap quarterback and try to win while they're still in their rookie contract? So it's an open-ended kind of conversation. It's a Friday, right? There's no hard-hitting topic right now where we have to yell at each other. I just want to have a educated conversation on how you think rosters should be built, how franchises should be built in each of the respective sports. And we're going to start with football because we're just entering the offseason, which is why I want to do that. Like, we're not entering an NBA offseason, so I don't want to start talking about how you should build the NBA roster to start. But I also know when it comes to the NBA, a lot of people don't want Joel Embiid. Not just because they don't like that he gets hurt. You would rather guard play. You would rather focus on wings. Like the running back in the NFL, the big man in the NBA is long gone, right, for most teams. So let's start with the NFL. What is the smart way to build a roster in the NFL? Climb in at 610-632-0975. It is a Fanatic Friday, and Fanatic Fridays are presented by Pumpman Philly for 24/7 emergency repair or punt replacement. Count on Pumpman Philly, the guys to know how to fix your flow. I can't wait to let you all play GM. I'm playing GM. Ray Dunn's going to play GM. That's what we're going to do all day today. How would you build? What are some of the top things that you would work on if you were building an NFL roster, right? And some of these are going to have to be hard conversations, especially here in Philadelphia. Because whether we agree with what the Eagles have done in the past or not, let's face it, it's worked. I always say this. For the people that go, if I were to talk to Howie Roseman, I would tell him to do this, this, and that. And if I'm Howie Roseman, I'm going, yeah, I hear you, but the last 6 years, I've won a Super Bowl and got back to another. We've won double-digit games, 3 of the last 6 years? Yeah, I think I'm doing a pretty good job with what I believe in. So the question is, what do you believe in? 610-632-0975. I'm Andrew Salchunas. I'll get Ray's thoughts on this, and we'll start breaking this down a little bit. It's a football guy show, but you know it's a sportsman show, Ray, because we're talking all four. I'm Andrew Salchunas, the Midday Show right here, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic right now, and you're hearing about all these great opportunities from our sponsors. What would it feel like to listen and hear us talking about your business? More importantly, how will you feel when your phone rings with people saying, I heard you on 97.5 The Fanatic? Find out how you can make that happen. Send an email to marketing@975thefanatic.com. That's marketing@975thefanatic.com. The next commercial you hear could be yours.
On your way home this afternoon, the best show ever starting at 2. Now more with Andrew Salchunas on 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
It is 10:20 on the Midday Show. I'm Andrew Salchunas. 10 o'clock hour brought to us by Window Nation. Take advantage of Window Nation's 50% off sale on all style windows. Plus, make no down payment with no payments and no interest for 12 full months. Call 866-90Nation or visit windownation.com. So I'm allowing you and Ray and myself, I'm giving myself permission, to play GM today. But it doesn't involve names necessarily. So if you're just tuning in, here's what I want to do today. It's something I was thinking about yesterday when we had our conversation about quarterbacks and whether or not there will one day be a new trend when teams don't pay their quarterbacks the incredibly large salaries that they get before accomplishing anything. You know, Jalen Hurts, he did accomplish something. They got to the Super Bowl. Justin Herbert hasn't done a damn thing in his career, and yet the Chargers gave him a boatload of money. And I'm not saying that they're wrong for doing it. I'm just wondering, when will that trend change? You look at the 4 quarterbacks that got paid last season. Jalen Hurts took a step back. Justin Herbert, injured. Joe Burrow, injured. Both maybe taking a step back. Lamar Jackson was the only guy that actually trended upward after getting paid. He won MVP and got to the AFC Championship game. You look at other quarterbacks that recently got paid big money. Derek Carr, he got traded and he's an absolute mess. I mean, there are quarterbacks that get paid so much money because of how important the position is that I think sometimes, maybe, teams ignore their shortcomings and go, man, we're so close with this guy that we're going to pay him a boatload of money. And then that could lead to other issues. So here's the deal. Ray, good morning. What's up?
Good morning.
So let's just say right away, you're paying your quarterback a lot of money.
That's the plan.
Plain and simple, right? Like, we don't have to do the whole, I'm gonna draft every 4 years and stay under the cap with the quarterback that I have. Like, no. Even though I wonder if that trend might change one day, for now, today's NFL, if you think you have your quarterback, you are paying your quarterback, and that's plain and simple. The question is, then where do you start allocating all your other resources? To me, offensive line, what the Eagles have been doing with the offensive line over the last 20 years is what all teams should do. I don't know why teams don't value offensive linemen. I know that Jamar Chase is a stud, and you always want to try to get your quarterback his weapon. But they ignored the offensive line to draft Jamar Chase. Look what's happened to Joe Burrow now. The guy's had two pretty bad injuries in his very early career. The Chargers have never had an offensive line for Justin Herbert. So if I'm going to try to defend Herbert for a second, he has no offensive line. I don't know how teams don't value the offensive line. Like, what the Eagles do, I don't think is rocket science, but it seems to be for other teams. Like, offensive line should probably be the first area that you focus on in trying to make your team better. Do you have any argument against that other than quarterback?
No.
Like, where else would you, no, you know what? We really need to get our corners in check before the offensive line. No, if you're putting all that money into your core, think about it. Your quarterback's your highest paid player. So you would want to protect them. I know there's the argument of, all right, we'll get them a lot of good weapons, like what the Eagles have had. The Eagles also benefit from having a great offensive line, which helps Jalen Hurts out. It's great and all when you get your guy 2 first-round wide receivers, but if he doesn't have more than 2 seconds to stand in the pocket and throw it, like, what was the point of all that?
Make his life more difficult, and also it allows you to, not spend a ton on running back because it's not taking, the best running back in the league to be able to run behind a good offensive line.
Look at DeAndre Swift. I like DeAndre Swift. I think he's very talented. Is DeAndre Swift a best running back in the NFL? No. But the guy rushed for over 1,000 yards in what I thought was limited touches. They didn't give him the ball much obviously at all in the first game. Think about it. He was wasn't he top 3 in rushing after the first 4 weeks and he didn't even play in the first game? Like, And I like DeAndre Swift. If you have a talented offensive line, like you said, Ray, if you have a talented offensive line, and oh, by the way, a good quarterback that you have to respect, that's going to let your running back play well without needing to allocate too many resources. That's why I didn't understand Bijan Robinson as a top 10 pick. You go back to what the Cowboys did with Ezekiel Elliott. Christian McCaffrey, he's a stud, almost won a Super Bowl. Not with the team he got drafted by. Like, drafting a running back early is putting teams behind the eight ball. Saquon Barkley. What have the Giants done with Barkley? Nothing. The top 5, top 10 running back is not winning you anything. And not just in the draft. Derrick Henry, what if the Titans won? They've won nothing. It's sad to say, but running backs are just, they're important to have because I mentioned the last 4 teams that were in the playoffs. They ran the ball pretty well, but going big money with a running back is not a smart thing to do. You just need to find somebody that's talented, like Isaiah Pacheco, who the Chiefs drafted in the 7th round. It's not like they used a first-round pick on him. Their first-round back barely plays in Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He barely plays. So to your point, yes, offensive line not only makes your quarterback's life better, but you don't have to put so many resources in at running back. So quarterback still, obviously, most important thing on a roster. Then it goes to the offensive line. Then the question kind of goes, what's next? Because to me, it depends on what your team is. The Eagles, it's defensive line. That's what they believe in most, right? I think there's an argument between D-line and corner. We watched the Eagles win a Super Bowl with Ronald Darby and Jalen Mills. You know, come on. Like, I like the Green Goblin and all, but come on. And Ronald Darby, that front was what wreaked havoc. The team that got back to the Super Bowl last year, that front wreaked havoc. They were tremendous. Now, you also had an all-pro in James Bradbury, and Darius Slay was phenomenal, but look at what happened this year when the front wasn't getting home. James Bradbury looked like he was 90 years old all of a sudden, right? He couldn't stick with anybody on the field. But I also wonder, Ray, if you have stellar cornerback play, does that help your defensive line out if they're not allocating the resources as much? I don't know if there is a smart answer there between the two.
I go defensive line first.
Okay.
And I think because of what you're talking about in terms of getting pressure, the same thing you said about protecting the quarterback and the fact that quarterback's life becomes much more difficult to have to get rid of it so quickly. Obviously, you're still going to be able to complete passes. Obviously, you know, we've seen teams with poor quarterback play be sunk. You know, you mentioned Bradbury and you mentioned this season with the Eagles. But overall, you want that pass rush to get home. And you want to be able to invest in that front because you know that if you're playing without a solid pass rush, your corner's in trouble anyway. Your secondary's in trouble anyway.
But it's interesting. Look at the Commanders before they started getting rid of everybody. But, like, Chase Young and Montez Sweat, like, they allocated first. What? Wasn't every player at one point a first-round pick on their defensive line? And it's not that they weren't talented, but their cornerback play was so bad that it didn't really matter. Like, what was the deal against the Eagles this year? I'll just get the ball out quick. And the way wide receivers are so athletic now, look, it's hard to find top-tier cornerbacks. We know that pretty well here in Philadelphia. But, man, if you can allocate the resources to corner, that I'll just get the ball out quick, that kind of goes away.
Yeah, I just think investing in the trenches, one, you're going to be able to attack, again, the quarterback, which is the biggest thing. And you're also, you know, dual purpose there in terms of being able to slow down any type of running attack against you. Like, that to me, they serve more purposes than all right, let's invest in a couple corners here. I think they have it right with what they do in terms of
and so now that's the funny thing, right? Like, I'm not trying to do just Eagles, but what I was about to say is what you just said. So what we're saying is the Eagles are doing it right. They invested in Jalen Hurts because they think they have their guy. They invested in Carson Wentz because they thought they had their guy. We obviously know how much they invested in Donovan McNabb all those years. With that, they invested heavily in the offensive line. That's never been an issue with the Eagles, right? The offensive line has never been an issue with the Eagles, really, in the last 20 years. And then D-line is the other area that they always go at. So what you're saying is you have no issue with how the Eagles are building their roster so far in terms of where they allocate the majority of their resources.
So it's interesting because I went on, as we get into this conversation, I want to spot track, and
Okay.
I'm trying to see where they invest the most money against the cap. If you had to guess what position group has the highest in terms of money invested into it with the Eagles, who would you think it'd be?
Right now, I will actually say, oh no, Devontae's still in his rookie contract. Probably corner secondary.
Secondary, $51.1 million.
Yeah, because they have Darius Slay's getting paid handsome money. James Bradbury's getting paid handsome money. Avonte Maddox is on his second contract.
I'd imagine the Bayard money counts there.
Bayard's on there. Because you can't say O-line, because Kelsey's not getting paid through the roof, I don't think. And then you still have Dickerson, who I know he eventually signed a did he sign his extension? Yeah, I think he signed an extension. No, he still has not signed an extension. He's still on his rookie deal. Cam Jurgens is still on his rookie deal. Mailata, I think, basically got a team-friendly left tackle contract. Lane Johnson gets paid a lot of money. But, yeah, no, the offensive line, because you have youth and then guys that are on one-year deals and Jason Kelsey, that's not the majority of their money. My guess would be second if you would ask me that.
Yeah, they're second.
They're
$3 million
second.
less.
Yeah, because you can't go D-line third because you have Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter on as a part of your starting defensive line pretty much. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. So what we're basically getting at so far is where the Eagles allocate the majority of their money, we're cool with. Quarterback, O-line, and defensive line. I guess the problem is the secondary just didn't pan out. Like Avonte Maddox hurt. James Bradbury not good. Kevin Byard was just a miss when they traded for him.
The Chiefs invested about half of what the Eagles did in their secondary right now.
Yeah, because they have guys
They hit
third, fourth round picks, which is why we did that youth movement conversation earlier this week when we said, all right, what should they do with the defense? Should they go spend big money defensively, or should they go with the youth movement? And that's what the Chiefs did. Jones is getting paid a lot of money. He's their second highest paid player for the Kansas City Chiefs. But after that, I mean, it's young guys like L'Jarius Sneed and Karlaftis, right? It's a bunch of young guys that they hit on in the draft. So that makes sense. But I guess really what it ends up coming down to is what the Eagles do that I think we disagree with, which is safety, linebacker, receiver you can't have a problem with anymore because A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, they're good, and running back. And really the question that ends up going, if you were a GM, if you're building a football team, are you investing more in running back than what the Eagles do? Are you investing more in the safety position than what the Eagles did? Yes, Bayard's probably a decent amount toward the cap, but Blankenship's not. Sidney Brown's not, right? They're young guys. And they're hoping that they get something out of these young guys instead of going after a big-name safety. They did that 2 years ago with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. And would you invest more in linebacker? And I think everybody in Philadelphia would say yes. But to what we were just getting at, it seems like we're okay with what they've done so far in terms of allocating resources at the quarterback, O-line, and D-line. So, really, it's what would you do different? When it comes to the Eagles and how the roster's been built for 20 years now, what would you do different? Obviously, linebacker, we want better players. But unless you're paying Patrick Queen a bunch of money, like what else would you do?
So it's interesting, again, going through Spot Track and looking at this. I think the Eagles have the formula of how to go about doing this. But I think ultimately they fall short in the execution. And really it comes when we're looking at defensively, because this does become a big defensive conversation given the way the season went. Linebacker ends up being the deficiency more because of who they select and because of what they've done with it. When you look at the Chiefs, and the Chiefs are going to be the benchmark because the team just won the Super Bowl. Their cap money dedicated to the linebacker position is about 1% of their cap. They've spent about $5 billion there.
Yeah.
They've put draft picks to it. Nick Bolton has turned into something for them. They've made the investment in the draft, and that's why we all assume they invest in that position. Their investments have hit. That's the difference.
Right.
For the Eagles, it has not hit. And the Eagles on Spot Track, they list Reddick and Nolan Smith as linebackers. So really, the Eagles are around similar, the 2%, 1% range if you remove Reddick and Smith from the investments there of what they've invested in linebacker. And, really put that to the off-ball linebackers, even though they tried Nolan Smith off-ball and they put Reddick in coverage. But really, the guys that we expect to play off-ball, they're similarly in the percentage of the cap they put towards it. It's about how you hit on that. Now, I would say now the situation you've put yourself in, where right now you are in a window of contention, and as you start to reshape this roster, investing in the linebacker position is not something I'm against, but I think they have the formula. They have not gone about putting the pieces there that would work. When someone else has put, Bolton in the third round.
But all that is great, right? Like the whole invest or hitting on players in the draft. But I feel like when we talk to Eagles fans, right, it's they got to go out there. They got to sign a big linebacker. They have to, right? Okay, well, if you're going to sign a big linebacker, you're right. Like what the Eagles have been doing is probably the smartest thing. They just haven't hit because maybe their scouting department has missed on guys, or maybe Howie just ignored at times, like Davion Taylor, right, in the third round. I mean, that kills you.
And Bolton is the third round pick. So
right.
There you go.
Exactly. I mean, and that kind of stuff helps and hurts your team. But for the people that say, oh, man, you got to go out there and invest and get a big linebacker, or you got to go out there and invest and get a big running back, then what area are you going to sort of take away from? Because here's what we got so far. Quarterback, number one investment. There's no really debating that, in my opinion. Like, the Nick Foles story is incredible, right? I will go to my grave knowing that I watched Nick Foles win a Super Bowl, right? But you can't really depend on trying to win with mid to lower level quarterbacks. You can't. You just look at what's happened. We ran through the last 10 years, the Super Bowl winners. It's been Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Russell Wilson, who ended up getting paid, was still on his rookie contract, Matt Stafford, who was a tremendous quarterback. He was on a super team in the Rams, and Nick Foles, right? So like, Nick Foles is the worst of those quarterbacks, right? Like, I don't think I'm saying a hot take that Mahomes and Brady and Russell Wilson and Matt Stafford were better than Nick Foles. So 1 out of 10 years was a quarterback that wasn't in the top 10. Right, it's top 10 quarterbacks that win. So quarterback would be the number one investment. If O-line is 2 and D-line is 3 and secondary is 4, we have 4 position groups left. It's linebacker, it's running back, it's tight end and wide receiver. Now we can separate defensive end and defensive tackle. Like where like I value edge rushers more than I value interior defensive linemen, if I'm being honest. And the last 2 Eagles drafts have been Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. I value edge rushers a little bit more. Secondary, it's safety versus cornerback. But if we're just going with these 8 position groups, quarterback, O-line, D-line, and secondary, your last 4 remaining position groups are linebacker, running back, tight end, and wide receiver. Wide receiver, I don't think anybody here has a problem with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, who, by the way, is going to get paid soon, right?
And should.
So if I'm putting wide receiver after secondary, you have 3 left. It's tight end, linebacker, and running back. Like, why would you put more money into running back if that takes away from your secondary? We already complain about this secondary. We already complain about this defensive line at times. And now you're going to take away from the ways you can allocate assets to those areas of the field that you find more important than others? Like, basically what it comes down to is the Eagles are probably doing it right. They just haven't hit on the right players. Now, the question is, what's the least amount of resources you would put in, running back or linebacker? I would like to say running back last, but I also know when you're a dynamic offense, you want to have a decent back there. I think also the sour taste in my mouth of how bad the linebacker play was, they should probably get more this year.
No, running back's last and last by a large margin. There's just a lot of talented backs. Like,
yeah, you can draft guys in the 4th round every single year and hope.
Yeah.
Like, the Eagles are just, once again, the ones that don't hit on the right guy, like Donnell Pumphrey.
Or, you could use that 4th round pick to trade for a running back on an expiring rookie deal.
Which is what they've done the last couple of years, and it's worked.
It's worked. A question for you when we get to the linebackers here. So here's the top 10 teams spending-wise. Spot Track on linebacker.
Oh, okay. This is interesting. Hold that, because I would like to hear that on the other side, because I'm sure there's some teams that are not doing well, and I'm sure there's some teams that are doing very well. Like I'm going to guess right now the Baltimore Ravens are on that list, and are they in the top 5?
They are not
Wow, really?
in the top 10.
Didn't they give their line? Okay. All right. Well,
So this is also interesting with what Spot Track considers a linebacker. Because, again, I mentioned Reddick and Smith were in there. So,
interesting.
but
Interesting.
It goes to show how much is spent that specifically. Also, I don't know if Spot Track's like trying to subtly support Reddick and back in coverage, but I would prefer that.
Yeah,
not to happen.
I don't want that to happen either. All right, so the number to climb it is 610-632-0975. Put on your GM cap today, or your GM suit and tie, I guess, and tell me if you were to build an NFL roster, what would you focus on the most in terms of allocating resources, and where would you kind of ignore? And basically, this comes down to the Eagles' offseason conversation because we know that they need linebacker play. We know that they need a better running back. But they're putting so much into other areas of the field that I don't think you can argue the Eagles are doing incorrectly. Hitting on players is one thing. I get that. I agree with you. They have to hit on players. But I don't think they're wrong in what their approach has been in terms of where they are allocating resources in terms of the cap. So we're going to continue the NFL one. I'll hear that list from Ray coming up next. Speaking of coming up next, I've read something really cool on ESPN. Cool and disappointing at the same time. They did their early predictions for next year and for this offseason. So they have like their MVP for next year. They have the Super Bowl matchup for next year. Spoiler alert, nobody mentioned the Eagles, which kind of sucks. So we'll run through that coming up next. But they also have players that could be on the move this offseason and where they would like them to go. And the Eagles were mentioned in that portion of it. So we'll get through to that coming up. Also on the show, as we continue, we're not just doing football, right? We're not just doing football roster building. We're going to continue. We're going to do the NBA next later on the 11 o'clock hour because I have Keith Pompey joining the show at 11:30. So we'll talk to Keith, and then after Keith, we'll start doing the NBA roster construction as we are entering the NBA All-Star break. After tonight, Sixers have one more game, and then the All-Star game is this weekend, so the break starts after tonight. So we'll get to Keith and get his thoughts on this Sixers team heading into the All-Star break. That comes your way at 11:30. The number to climb in is 610-632-0975. I'm Andrew Salchunas. It's the Midday Show right here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Flyers comeback falls short. I'm Ray Dunn.
thefanatic.com.
It is 10:50 on the Midday Show. I'm Andrew Salchunas, 97.5 The Fanatic. Putting on your GM cap today. Your GM cap so we can try to see what is the right route in terms of building a team. Building a team in the NFL to start. We're eventually going to go on to the NBA and MLB and NHL. What is the right way to build a team? Because I feel like here in Philadelphia specifically, we don't agree with the players on the field. We don't agree with how they allocate resources or don't toward linebacker, right? We don't agree with the safety position. We don't agree with the running back spot. But if you don't agree with those areas of the field, I don't blame you. Look, I watched awful linebacker play all season long. Awful. They love Kenneth Gainwell in the backfield. I can't do it. Safety is a mess. But if you were to focus more on those areas, what are you going to take away from? You going to take away from the quarterback? Like, no, you already paid him. And if you're starting over, right, you're going to get a high-priced quarterback. You're going to take away from the O-line? The O-line that protects your most important asset? You're going to take away the D-line and just have four guys that can't get home and let the quarterback stand tall and have all day to throw? You're going to take away from the secondary, who if that quarterback has all day to throw, they're throwing a wide receivers being covered by traffic cones? Again, this is not what the Eagles have on the roster in terms of player by player. Like, obviously, James Bradbury was a mess this year. But they allocated those resources to cornerback, and I don't think people should have a problem with that. But if you have a problem with how they handle linebacker and how they handle running back, my question for you at 610-632-0975 is what would you change? Like, how would you change the Eagles' approach? So I'm going to get to this ESPN.com article in a second. It's the 2024 NFL predictions. They have the early Super Bowl picks, the MVP, and then moves that they like to see made in the offseason. And I see the Eagles are mentioned for a player. I'll get to that in a second. But, Ray, you found something interesting that I'd love to get through. So this is on Spot Track, which is an incredible website for all sports, right? It's not just doesn't just cover the cap space for the Eagles or for the NFL. It's all sports. And you found the top 10 teams in terms of how much money spent at linebacker. Is that correct?
Yes. So I have last season. So we're going to go, instead of looking at right now where they're going towards 2024,
Right,
we can look at results from last season.
And, of course, we were not happy with the Eagles linebacker play. And so where are they on this list, if they're on this list?
They are, I'll spoiler, they're not in the top 10
Okay.
in terms
And
of spending on linebacker.
Shocker. Right? Like, we're not shocked when it comes to this. And so, all right, let's see who is in the top 10.
All right. So your top team in terms of spending spending on linebackers.
Number 1.
Pittsburgh Steelers.
Okay.
Jacksonville Jaguars.
2. Okay.
Green Bay Packers.
All right.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Pittsburgh, Jacksonville, Green Bay, Tampa. All right.
Buccaneers, Jets. Chargers. Vikings. Panthers. Dolphins. And I believe the 49ers round out that list.
All right, so you have 4 playoff teams on this list. 5 playoff teams on this list. And the team that was in the Super Bowl was number 10 in the 49ers. Pittsburgh, that's just what they do, man. Right? That's the Pittsburgh way. Just like the Eagles' way is offensive line, defensive line, the Pittsburgh way is linebacker. Jacksonville, they have nice players, but look at what ended up happening on that defense. They fell apart the second half of the season. Green Bay, their defense sucks. Tampa, they got nice players, and I actually like their defense, and Todd Bowles utilizes them well as well. I mean, that's another big thing. Like, do you have the coordinator or the defensive mind to utilize the players that you have? Like, I wonder, safety is an area where we think the Eagles should spend more money. Vic Fangio, his scheme, you need good safeties in his kind of scheme. The Jets, the defense is tremendous. They should have been in the playoffs had they not just gone with Zach Wilson after Aaron Rodgers got hurt. The Chargers are a mess. Vikings, their defense stinks. The Panthers are young, and I don't know if that's going to go anywhere anytime soon. The Dolphins were banged up, and the 49ers went to the Super Bowl, but they were 10th. do you have any of the teams outside the top 10, or is it just the top 10?
Of course, I have teams. Top
I was
10.
like,
Sorry,
where are the Eagles on this?
The Eagles come in. All right, let's count from the bottom here because they are. I believe 25th.
So they're toward the bottom.
They are sandwiched between the Arizona Cardinals and the Indianapolis Colts.
Okay. Now this is where it's the one thing that's hard with this. So the Ravens aren't even in the top 10, right? As we went through it.
No, I believe they're 12th or 11th.
Okay. Roquan Smith is the highest paid linebacker in the NFL. Right at $20 million a year. Shaq Leonard.
Well, this is against the cap for last year.
Right, I understand that. Was it his contract against the cap? I think it was.
Not all of it. $9 million was his cap hit last season.
Okay, so that's going to start kicking in.
Yeah,
eventually.
if you look at the cap hit for linebackers going into 2024, right now the Chargers have almost $90 million right now against the cap at the linebacker position.
And do you think
that's going to change?
Do you think they like that? Like, probably not.
That's going to change.
Right, that's probably going to change. So, I don't know, it's interesting. Like, linebacker is a position where we here in Philadelphia are upset with the Eagles' lack of attention toward it. But if you were to start allocating more resources to the linebacker, you'd have to take away from offensive line, defensive line, or secondary. Because to us, quarterback, O-line, D-line, secondary are the top 4 most important areas of the field to put resources. And then if you look at the top 10 teams in terms of spending at the linebacker position, Pittsburgh's number 1, a fringe playoff team. Jacksonville missed the playoffs. Green Bay, and that defense stinks. Tampa, but they're not winning anything anytime soon. The Jets are number 5. They could be a legitimate team if, they had a real quarterback. The Chargers stink. The Vikings stink. The Panthers stink. The Dolphins, surprisingly, at linebacker with all the weapons they have offensively. And then the 49ers come in at number 10. So even the team that you could make the case as the best linebackers, they're still 10th in San Francisco. I don't know how else you would approach it, right? I really don't think you could. I think what the Eagles are doing is actually correct, whether we like to admit that or not.
I think we're going right back down the path of, can this team draft?
Right. That's what it basically comes down to.
Right. I mean, that's what you're waiting on. Like you're looking at what their future plans are at linebacker and at safety, and it's okay. Well, you've got Dean, and you've really pledged your allegiance to Dean, but the fact that Dean and Taylor, both of them right now, I mean, Taylor was a total bust. Dean, you're waiting to see if he lives up to any of the expectations that you had.
I haven't seen anything.
I'm not too encouraged on that one. Then you go look at safety, and it's okay. Do you think that Sidney Brown's going to turn into something for you? And it's early, and you saw flashes of it, but that's a lot of where you're placing your faith, because you need some options in the secondary that are not extremely expensive.
Right, and I guess basically what I'm getting at when I'm talking about allocating resources, I'm not necessarily going picks. I'm going money, right? Because that's what this conversation is all about: is cap space and against the cap. Because you might not. Not every team hits on every draft pick, right? So they get free agents, so they make trades to make their team better. But the question is, what area do you want to try to go after the top free agent for? The top, we knew when the top backs were available last offseason, we knew the Eagles weren't going to go after them. They weren't going to pay Miles Sanders. That was never in their plans. They were never going to do that because that's not what they believe in. And then when it comes to linebackers, I don't think they're going to go sign the biggest, highest paid linebacker this offseason. That's not something that they do. And the teams that do that, the 10 that I gave you, only 5 of them were in the playoffs. And was Pittsburgh really a threat in the playoffs? No, they weren't a threat in the playoffs. Green Bay, to their credit, did win a playoff game in the beginning. They actually played Jordan Love, but that defense is actually trash. It's amazing they actually won a playoff game. So let's talk about it. 610-632-0975. I'll get into this ESPN article in a second, but let's go to Neil in the Lehigh Valley. What's up, Neil?
Hey, I understand what you're saying totally. And you don't want to go out and sign big free agent linebackers, some of the big name guys or any real high price guys. But I think it all comes down to allocating draft picks properly to it. And you can draft guys, and they've just got to do a better job.
Well, right. And basically the point of this conversation is put draft aside for a second. It's where you're spending your money, because every team is drafting guys in positions of need and hoping they can get somebody cheap out of it. And to your point, you're right. The Eagles the Eagles have tried, right? Nakobe Dean was a third-round pick is still a high pick. A day 2 pick is a high pick. He has not turned out to what you hoped out of Georgia, and Davion Taylor's not even on the roster.
Right. No, and I do agree with that. And what you're saying is you don't want to go out and sign any high-priced free agents. I do understand that, and I do agree with that. I'm just saying that maybe even when they're picking out these free agents, it doesn't necessarily have to be a high-priced guy. It can be the middle-of-the-road guys. Anyway, what we're ending up with is crap.
Right.
In some of these cases.
Yeah, I mean, they're not even going middle of the road. They're going bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
But then my question is, Neil, right? Like, cap space is a legit thing, right? So right now, what we figured out, the 4 most important areas to put money, in our opinions, is quarterback, O-line, D-line, and secondary. So if you were to start putting more money into the linebacker, what spot would you take away from?
No, but that's my whole point. Is you can get guys who are decent and you don't have to pay a ton of money for. And I'm not a great guy with free agents. I can't tell you who's going to be a free agent and stuff like that. I'm just saying, in general, it seems like some teams year after year are able to pick up replacement pieces, and to get somebody at any spot, necessarily, like the 49ers always seem to find somebody, and
right.
Some other teams, and.
And to that point, Fred Warner is the 3rd highest paid linebacker in the NFL, and they were just in the Super Bowl. And thanks for the call, Neil. Like, Roquan Smith, number 1, they were in the AFC Championship game. Fred Warner, number 3, they were in the Super Bowl. But then you look at some of the other guys. Like, Shaq Leonard was number 2. The Colts ended up releasing him. Tremaine Edmonds with the Bears. They stink. C.J. Mosley is a nice linebacker. They just went with Zach Wilson when Aaron Rodgers got hurt, which was ridiculous. And that's your top 5. But out of your top 5, you had 2 teams in 2 real teams in the playoffs because the Colts weren't a threat.
And they
didn't make the playoffs.
They
were final day. Sorry. Toward the end, they were.
Well, I mean, just want to make sure. I know you want Minshew to get his praise.
Okay.
Yeah, you were throwing a party to celebrate. You watched the Pro Bowl with all your friends in your Minshew jerseys.
Yes, that's what we did. But I will say this. Hold on, let me see. Are they even anywhere close? Yeah, the Eagles aren't even in the top. They don't have oh my God. The Eagles do not have a running back in the top 40 in terms of salary. Devin Bush with the Seahawks is at the bottom of this list making $3.5 million. That is probably a little problematic. It's all these vet minimum deals and then hoping that a rookie pans out. And by the way, it's not like Jordan Hicks is a nice linebacker still. $3.5 million. They can probably open the wallet a little bit.
The question, I guess, becomes how marginal a difference is between a Zach Cunningham and Hicks that makes you want to open up that wallet.
Right. Like Alex Singleton, former Eagle.
Oh, yeah, trust me.
$6 million a year. That's probably a mistake by Denver to do that.
Yeah, Singleton making more than all the Eagles off-ball linebackers combined.
I'm kind of cool with that, actually.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And that's why not to totally justify what they're doing, because obviously, my friend who is one with the gambling,
yes.
He likes to throw around a couple dollars. When he loses a bet that he thought was a good bet, he will go with the good process, bad result. That's his justification to his mind. For the Eagles, this could be a little bit of a situation of good process, bad result. Like, your thought process here might not be the worst. You just have not been able to make the results out there. I think it's more about identifying the talent of linebackers.
Right.
Like, hey, give them the credit for finding T.J. Edwards. But for finding T.J. Edwards, you also have subjected us to some slop. And it's not the good slop. It's not the slop we're talking about when it comes to the NBA, where we have a lot of fun.
It's not the slop report.
This is not the slop report.
This is the bad slop.
This is the bad slop.
Yeah.
And that's more the issue
This is the cafeteria sloppy Joe.
If you want to go about doing it in this way, you have to be certain that you're going to identify
you
at
have to
least
be able to.
one.
We talk about how it's a quarterback factory. We need a linebacker factory here.
Yeah.
Right? Where the factory's actually operating.
Correct.
All right, so here's this ESPN article. They did the 2024 NFL predictions, early Super Bowl 25 picks, MVP, and breakouts. Unfortunately, the Eagles aren't mentioned in any of the Super Bowl predictions.
I'm shocked.
Matt Bowen goes Packers over Bengals. Now, they still have a lot of work to do defensively, but they have Packers over Bengals. Love train. Yeah, that music's going to have to carry over back to the Judas train.
Yeah, I know.
But watch yourself.
I'm getting last use out of it.
Good. Mike Clay has Lions over Texans. Wow. Man, do we value the rising quarterback a lot. And look, rightfully so, the rookie deal is a big part of it, right?
During this offseason, you got a young quarterback and a lot of space.
Jalen Hurts, year 2 as a starter, year 3 of his rookie deal. Like, they got to the Super Bowl. Jeremy Fowler has Bills over Rams. I'm sorry. It's a nice story. I can't see the Rams getting back again.
No, though the way they came on strong at the end.
Yeah, but do
no.
you trust Stafford's health? That's a big part of it. Like, I know health goes into any of this kind of stuff, but, like, I don't know if I trust Stafford to stay healthy. I don't know. It's interesting. Bills over Rams. Dan Graziano has Bengals over Lions, so the Lions getting a lot of love. Matt Miller with the Chiefs again. Chiefs over Packers. Eric Moody says Chiefs over Packers. Jordan Reeves says Chiefs over Lions. Mike Tannenbaum, Lions over... Man, really? The Chargers.
That's right.
Come on,
I'm
man.
ready to get fooled again.
Come on, man. Stop that.
Jim Harbaugh, man. Come on.
Lindsey Thierry has the Chiefs over the Lions. Seth Walder has the Niners over the Bills. I can't see the Niners win. They're falling apart. And Field Yates is Chiefs over Rams. So a lot of Rams love. Chiefs obviously getting a ton of love. Rams getting some love, and the Lions getting a lot. But notice no Eagles. Nobody mentioned via the Eagles for MVP. But something that that caught my eye. So they did, what's the one move you'd like to see this offseason? And that same panel all gave their answers. Field Yates said the Seahawks signed Patrick Queen, add to that linebacker group. Get back to the nitty-gritty Seahawks defense. Walder says the Browns trade for Justin Fields.
Oh.
So what, give up on Deshaun Watson and trade for Justin Fields? That's what the Eagles did with Wentz. They said, you know what, this isn't going to work out. Let's just move on.
Fully guaranteed deal?
Yeah, they just cut it. They just eat the salary.
Oh.
So they have the Browns trading for Justin Fields. There's a lot of Justin Fields on here. Tannenbaum says the Bears trade Justin Fields to the Falcons, as does Miller has Justin Fields to the Steelers.
I am jealous a little bit. Like, not really. Jealous is the wrong word. I am so intrigued by the daily conversation of Chicago right now.
Oh, yeah.
Like, this is ultimate fun. Like, in terms of just content, the idea of what you could have as a quarterback versus what you could have with Justin Fields and someone else.
Right, like we're playing GM cap based off of salary implications.
We're talking about what you should invest in linebacker and running back. They're talking about franchise quarterback.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, again, I'm not jealous of it. Jealous is the wrong word. I love having a franchise quarterback. And
No, you're just talking about for content purposes and for talking points. Like let's be honest, this past Eagles offseason sucked. It was so boring.
Yes.
It was a very boring offseason, which is great. That means things were going well and we were happy. Super Bowl
expectations,
like all that kind of stuff. That's great. That's great. Like I'm not a guy that sells my soul, as in my fandom soul, just so that I can have content. Like I don't do that. This offseason is going to be fascinating for the Eagles because there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of talk. There's a lot of what should they do here. Draft talk is going to be bigger this year than it was in the last couple of years. But you're right. Like the franchise quarterback content is pretty big. So the Eagles are mentioned for a move. And it was from Matt Bowen, NFL analyst. He would like to see the Eagles sign L'Jarius Sneed, guy who just won the Super Bowl with the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, did you see L'Jarius Sneed on with Kay Adams?
No.
So Kay Adams has Sneed on as a guest. And she goes, hey, what would you like to tell Brett Veach? Brett Veach, the GM of the
Right.
Kansas City Chiefs. Even though Andy's the personnel guy, it's Veach is the guy that's handling the contract. L'Jarius Sneed just right away on camera, pay me, pay me, pay me. That's him. That's him saying that on national TV. Right? He's not hiding from it. Pay me. So they say L'Jarius Sneed signs with the Eagles. Upgrading the cornerback position is an offseason priority in Philadelphia. With Sneed, the Eagles land one of the top veteran free agents who has the coverage skills and ability to produce in Vic Fangio's system. Does that move the needle for you? 2-time Super Bowl champion?
Yeah, that moves the needle.
And also, you move on from James Bradbury that way.
And you also figure out how you pay him, extend Smith, and keep Reddick. But yeah.
Yeah, you figure it out.
Yeah. Howie.
Yeah.
It's your time.
Oh, it is his time, man. He's the cap wizard. All right, so we'll continue this conversation. The number to climb in is 610-632-0975. So I'll remind you what we're getting to. If you're just tuning in, we're talking about you putting on the GM cap. I'll explain exactly what I mean coming up next. Keith Pompey will join us at 11:30. So next segment, we'll talk to Keith as the Sixers have one more game before the NBA All-Star break. So we'll see what he believes where the Sixers are at heading into the All-Star break. And, obviously we're still just kind of waiting to see what Joel Embiid is. But the reaction to the post-deadline now that we know how these players are fitting with this team. So we'll talk to Keith at 11:30, and then we'll start talking about how we would build an NBA roster. I'm Andrew Sal Jr. It's the Midday Show right here, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports
is 11:18, 97.5 The Fanatic. I'm Andrew Salchunas on the Midday Show. We got Keith Pompey coming up at 11:30 to talk about the Sixers as they have one game left before they enter the All-Star. Say that again?
I think they're done. We got All-Star weekend right here. All starting tonight.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Man, what was I looking at
I don't know.
on the FanDuel Sportsbook app?
You're excited for the Knicks game next week.
I was about to make picks for next week already.
Yeah. Hey,
Is
man.
that right? Is the whole league's done?
Yeah. Last night.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I thought that's what you said earlier, but
there
I
was
like,
only 3 games last night.
Yeah.
By the way, Doc.
Awesome. Masterclass.
Unbelievable. The Bucks blow a lead to the Grizzlies. Grizzlies are one of the worst teams in basketball this year. And they just blow a lead. And did you see the post game?
Oh, yeah. G.G. Jackson.
They ask him, what happened. He goes, well, first, I want to give credit to Doc Rivers and the Bucks. And I don't know, is that how we're taking it, or was he just trying to be nice? Like, was he doing the whole hey man, credit to that team, they fought hard today? Or was he taking a shot?
I would prefer it to be him taking a shot, to be honest with you. So I'm going to, I say all the time.
He's 19 years old.
Yeah. So what does he remember of Doc winning a title? Like nothing.
No, but my thought process is, he's a 19-year-old kid, and he's trying to be respectful. So he says, first I want to give credit to. It's like when the player wins an award and says, first I want to give credit to God, right? Like, that's the first thing they say. He may want to.
Rivers?
He may want to do the respect thing first before he talked about himself first.
No. See, I say this all the time. We look for the meaning we want in things. I'm looking for the meaning I want in this one. He was trolling him.
This is amazing.
There was a couple of good other quotes from G.G. Jackson I can't find, but he's a quote machine.
Incredible yesterday. So, yeah, sorry. The NBA All-Star break has officially started. We got the skills competitions coming up this weekend. We got the game itself coming up this weekend. So we'll talk to Keith to see what where he's at, what he thinks about the Sixers as the All-Star break starts, and how they're going to look post All-Star break. Kyle Lowry obviously ramping up to play post All-Star break. So we'll talk to Keith about that at 11:30. But here's what we've been talking about during the show today on this Fanatic Friday, which is presented by Pumpman Philly for 24/7 emergency repair, pump replacement. Count on Pumpman Philly, the guys that know to fix your floor. Today, I'm talking about how to build a roster in each of the 4 major sports. My apologies to soccer. Get a good goaltender, right? Is that a good way to go about it? Get a good striker. Get somebody on defense. Yeah. Go out there and do that.
Attack the transfer window.
Yeah, do that. Yeah. The transfer portal.
No. You're thinking of college sports. You're also the NCAA. I know we did it yesterday, but just thinking about it yesterday on the drive home about the game, I can't wait to be deep in the portal in that game. In the portal, I can't wait to be deep into NIL. I can't wait to be in every bit of what NCAA 25 brings out in this.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be fantastic. It's gonna be fantastic. So here's the deal. So what we've been talking about with the NFL roster, all right, we're building a roster. And we're doing this for all the respective sports, but we started off with football. How should you build an NFL roster? Forget names, forget players, forget draft picks. I'm talking about allocating money, right? Putting your money, signing the big free agent, making the trade for the high-priced player. What should the right route be for the NFL? And here's what Ray and I came to terms with to start the show. We said quarterback, obviously, you're going to put the majority of your money into. They're the highest paid players. That's never going to change, at least I don't think. After that, in our opinion, we agree on this, offensive line should be the second highest paid grouping on the field. Or at least you have 3 guys that are in your top 10 in terms of salary, because left tackle and right tackle is a major deal in sports. And then obviously the guard position. A little bit different here that we have Jason Kelsey, and he's an all-pro, and he's a legend. But left tackle, right guard. We saw Brandon Brooks get paid big money at one point. So here's the deal. If you agree with that, okay, that's 1 quarterback. Offensive line is 2. Then what's 3? Well, probably defensive line, because as Ray made the point, you're trying to protect your quarterback. Well, what are you protecting them from? So if there's high-priced offensive linemen out there, there's high-priced defensive linemen out there. And then if secondary is the fourth most important area to allocate resources because maybe you don't want to rely on rookie cornerbacks all the time, where are you going to put linebacker? Because here in Philadelphia, we are upset that the Eagles don't put any resources into linebacker. We are upset they don't put any resources into running back in terms of paying players. People wanted to trade for Derrick Henry. Remember that popped up randomly? That Derrick Henry, who was it? Was it Baja Biamila? The former Green Bay Packer, and now I think he hosts, what's that show called where they have to dodge? It's not American Ninja Warrior.
No,
Wipeout?
Wipeout.
Yeah.
That's it.
He randomly has this report that the Eagles are going to trade for Derrick Henry.
At like 1 in the morning.
Yeah,
that was wild. What?
But people ran with it. People were excited, like, oh my God, we're going to get Derrick Henry. I knew they weren't going to get Derrick Henry. That's not what the Eagles do. The Eagles don't pay for running backs. And I know here in Philadelphia, a lot of people have a problem with that. But if you have a problem with that, where are you going to not pay as much attention to? Quarterback? No. Offensive line? No. Defensive line? Probably not. And secondary? Probably not. So then after O-line, D-line, secondary, it's what? Linebacker, running back, tight end, or wide receiver. Now, we haven't really come up with the one that comes fifth, right? So I'm going to guess wide receiver over tight end. Now, I love good tight end play. I do. And the Eagles have been really good with that over the years. Dallas Goedert. Before Goddard was Zach Ertz. Before Ertz, it was Brent Selleck, right? Like, those are and before Selleck was Chad Lewis, right? Like, my four tight ends in my lifetime, the number one tight ends, have been pretty damn good. But, man, do I love having A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith on my team. And it's not just the Eagles, because I keep on saying forget, the Eagles. 49ers have two top wide receivers. The Dolphins have top wide receivers. But in the same breath, Ray, the Chiefs didn't have anybody.
Except that they invested in a maybe top 3 tight end that we've seen. And also they've got the GOAT.
They have the
That
GOAT.
helps. That helps.
That helps big time.
Yeah. Like, a lot of, I know, you should be able to do it without the help on the outside. It helps when you have top flight receivers. You know, I know they didn't get the job done that season with the Patriots, but the reason they were close to perfect in that 2007 season, they had the GOAT quarterback, and who's he throwing to?
He's throwing to Randy Moss.
Yeah, that doesn't hurt.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt at all.
Hurt.
So wide receiver, we're putting fifth, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Though it is interesting to see the 2023 cap hits at wide receiver.
Okay. What, top 10 teams?
Top 10 teams.
All right. So, again, linebacker, because we were trying to make the case that the Eagles are probably actually doing it right, even though we don't agree with it. The top 10 teams in terms of cap hits with linebackers last year, number 1 was Pittsburgh, fringe playoff team. Jacksonville missed the playoffs. Green Bay was 3rd. Tampa was 4th. The Jets were 5th. I think the Jets are actually, it's an identity thing, and they would have been better had Zach Wilson not been their quarterback. Chargers were 6th. They stink. Vikings 7th. Panthers 8th. Dolphins 9th. Playoff team. 49ers got to the Super Bowl, but they were 10th. So as much as we make about Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, they were 10th on that list. So what's the wide receiver you have? Top 10? So
this is, again, cap money. So this is all about the cap, and this is 2023. Top spending on wide receivers. Raiders.
Wow.
Buccaneers.
Wait, hold on. So Raiders 1. Now, is Ruggs still on there?
No, Renfro. People forget Renfro makes $13 million.
Yeah, and Ruggs is still on his rookie contract. Yeah.
So Raiders, Buccaneers, Dolphins, Commanders. Did not expect that there. Jaguars, Browns, Seahawks, Bears, Broncos, and if that's not 10, the Bengals are next.
Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Broncos, and then who?
Bengals.
Now, Bengals are 10th because Jamar Chase is just getting paid.
Tyler Boyd has the highest deal of anyone on that one. Again, this is all cap dollars. I want to continue to emphasize that.
Right, it's cap dollars. But
so we're not getting you all the cash. We're not getting you, this got restructured.
But this is also interesting, right? So, linebacker, only 5 playoff teams, and Pittsburgh wasn't an actual threat. Neither was Tampa, if we're being honest with ourselves, even though they beat the Eagles. Wide receivers, Raiders missed the playoffs. The Bucks with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. The Dolphins, now, that I'm cool with because that's what their identity is. Like, it's like, we're going to try to outscore you guys. Right? Like, if you have an identity, that makes sense. Like, Pittsburgh being number one doesn't shock me in linebacker because that's what they do. But your Commanders stink. Jags missed the playoffs. Browns because of Amari Cooper. Seahawks, but look at what they're doing now with quarterback. They're keeping Geno Smith for as little money as they have him for. Broncos. Who's before the Broncos? I have a chicken scratch here.
That would be the Bears.
Bear. Oh, my God. Well, Claypool was probably still on there. That would be my guess.
No, just a $20 million cap hit for DJ Moore.
Oh, jeez. Interesting, man. Do me a favor. After we speak with Keith, we'll open up the NBA one, too. Get me the top 10 O-line and D-line because I want to see where the Eagles are at when it comes to that. So the number to climb in, 610-632-0975. We're trying to figure out what is the appropriate way to build a roster, in your opinion. Because I know running back and linebacker, we want more here in Philly. But if you want more linebacker and running backs in terms of, pay scale, well, who are you going to take away from when it comes to the quarterback, O-line, D-line, secondary, which is the top four for the Eagles? And you've seen the linebackers. It's actually not all that great. We'll do the running back one, too. We'll see what the top 10 running back spending teams are as we do this, because I'm going to guess right now that not many great teams, except obviously the 49ers because they had Christian McCaffrey, but they're running the football before McCaffrey even got there. The number to climb in is 610-632-0975. But the NBA All-Star break is upon us, so now we wait until the Sixers come back. It's going to be great watching Tyrese Maxey play in the All-Star game. And I can't wait for it. It's going to be a lot of fun to see him play. He deserves to be in it, which is great. So we'll talk about that with Keith momentarily. And then also just try to figure out what the Sixers will be like in the unofficial second half of the season. Now that the All-Star break is upon us, we start looking ahead toward the playoffs, right? When you do the timeline of the NBA, Christmas Day is like the unofficial start. Then there's the trade deadline. Then there's the All-Star break. And now it's, all right, giddy up, get ready for the playoffs. So let's head to the Comcast Business Hotline from the Inquirer, inquirer.com. Keith Pompey. Keith, what's going on, man? How you doing today?
Hey, what's up, man? I'm doing well. What's up? What's up with you?
I'm doing great. I just want to have a little Sixers talk as we're about to go into the All-Star break. First things first, Tyrese Maxey in the All-Star game. We've known that for a little bit now. But, man, just talk about Maxey for a little bit. A testament to him for getting into this All-Star game, especially as a young player in this league. Probably not the household name yet. He's not marketed the way some of the other top players or top young players in the NBA are. This is pretty cool for Maxey.
Oh, it's huge for Maxey. And the thing is, I think that it's crazy. Like, we say that he's not, marketed like other players, but when you go places, people know exactly who he is. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
You saw how the fan was in Cleveland crying, and typically, like, the players, Maxey, if the players just voted alone, Maxey would be an all-star starter. So I feel like everybody knows about this guy, and he's only going to get better. I mean, he's exciting, great personality, and he's fun to watch. Fun to watch.
Yeah, it's been a blast, and so we're expecting big things out of him in the second half as well. And Keith, I want to ask you, what are you expecting out of the team in the second half? Well, obviously, we're just waiting to see what happens with Joel Embiid when he comes back, if he comes back, but we know this team is not the same without Joel Embiid. It was pretty decent post-deadline. They go 2-2 going to the All-Star break. What are some of your expectations with the Sixers in this unofficial second half post the All-Star break?
I think that this is the hardest time to have, like, expectations just because we don't know when Joel Embiid is about to come back. And then we don't know what type of shape he's going to be in. Mm-hmm. Like, you assume it's going to be, what was it, 6 to 8 weeks, so which now is 4 to 6 weeks because it's been right around 2 weeks, right?
Right.
But the thing is, until he's like 100% back, you really don't know. Now, the problem is if he doesn't come back, I don't see this team having a lot of success. I can see them, continuing to slide a little bit and maybe making the play. I mean, I expect them to make the playoffs, But you know what I mean? It's just like, what seed are they going to be? A low one. But if he doesn't come back, you know, I think they're going to struggle. Now, if he does come back, you know, it's just a matter of like what percentage is he going to be at, and then B, like is he going to be in tip top shape? You know, so there's a lot of questions for the Sixers. So, you know, there's a lot of the unknown, a lot of them, because even with, like, you know, we got Buddy Hield here, but how many games has he played with Tobias Harris? I think he played 2.
Right.
You know, and then other guys, you know, he has yet to play with the Anthony Melton, Nick Batum. So there's a lot of question marks with this team moving forward.
Speaking of those injuries, Embiid aside, man, how important is this All-Star break at this time for the Sixers?
Oh, it couldn't come at a better time for them. I mean, they just really need to rest up. Because when you look at it, I know right now there's a lot of teams banged up, but I don't know the last time we've seen a team who played without 4 starters for this extended period of time. I mean, like, you know, the last time that they played with their real starting lineup and or had all their players active was like a couple months ago when they beat the Charlotte Hornets by 53, right? That's been a long time. So, you know, it couldn't have come at a better time for the Sixers. You know, Nick Nurse to regroup. You know, now you got guys who have a couple of days of rest time, because even with the guys who are playing, I mean, it has to take a toll because all the minutes that they have to play just to keep the team competitive.
Now, last time I had you on, it was pre-trade deadline. Now we're post-trade deadline. We've seen a chance some of these guys to play. Before we even talk about how they have played post-trade deadline, we'd love to get your thoughts on the deadline itself, what the Sixers came away with. Were you shocked that they didn't come out with a center? What did you think of the Sixers at the deadline?
You know, in a way, to start off with the center position, initially I was a little shocked because, I mean, that was the position of need that they had. I know that they wanted Drummond. I know that Chicago didn't want to trade him. You know, but then there was a guy like maybe Daniel Gafford. I know that he's not a great center, but at the same time, I felt like he would have been a body that they could have used, right? So something like that. So for great, and I would say they didn't do very well in that category. Now, the thing about Buddy Hield, you know, I think that was a great pickup. I do. But I also would have liked to see them get another guard. Now, I know that they have Kyle Lowry, but we got to figure out, like, how much does he have left in the tank? And, you know what I mean, that's the main question mark. And then, to be honest with you, and I get the whole Kyle thing, like Kyle's going to take the backup point guard role. But to me, there was 3 guys that they got rid of. And if you look at it, you know, some people say they look at Marcus Morris and they say, but Pompey, you're high on him, but look at him on the defensive end. But to me, Marcus Morris and Pat Bev were the heart of the team. They were the two best guys coming off the bench. But they also brought a toughness. And if you notice, like, the Sixers, you know, they had an edge with them. And it was because of both of those 2 guys. And they're gone. And then the thing that it got me was the Jaden Springer thing. You know, just because, you know, Jaden Springer, like, just came off of back-to-back games where he shut down Luka Doncic and he shut down Steph Curry. And all of a sudden he's traded for a second-round pick. And, you know, the thing is, if it would have happened maybe a week beforehand or 2 weeks beforehand, it would have been like, okay, I understand it. But the fact that he shut these 2 dudes down, and now you got your other perimeter defenders haven't played since December or early January. To me, I'm talking about the elite perimeter defenders. It's kind of like you got rid of, you know, positions of needs, people of needs. Now, who knows what Kyle Lowry could bring? And, you know, it could be an upgrade in regards to Pat Bev. But at the same time, the last time we saw Pat Bev in a real meaningful game, he's on the court putting guys in the right positions to play. And he did the same thing with Milwaukee. So, to me, those were head scratchers. I'm just going to be honest with you.
Speaking of Keith Pompey on the Comcast Business Hotline, yeah, the Jaden Springer one, like, I'm not losing sleep over Springer being gone, but like you said, it just doesn't really make sense. Now, I know Morey gave his explanation saying that they valued the second-round pick that they got back more than where Springer's at in his career in terms of the championship window. I don't know. Isn't there at some point you have to try to trust some of your younger players to develop into something?
Yeah, I mean, but it just seems like this is a trend right now, too, though. Like, I mean, you look at it, Isaiah Joe, they waived him, right?
Right.
You know, Charles Bassey, you know, he was a guy whenever he played, you know, he played at a high level for, you know, a second-round pick, you know, a guy like that, right? Well, what happened? They waived him. You know, so then it's like Matisse Thybulle. You know, he was a two-time second-team all-defensive player. Well, we're going to trade him for a guy who, you know, basically we waived after we said we were going to try to re-sign him, right? So, and then, you know, so it's kind of par for the course a little bit in regards to, like, getting these guys and developing them. And it just seems like that's not the plan. I mean, they'll get them, they'll draft them, and they're here, and then it just seems like, you know, when it's time for them to get paid or what have you, it's one of those things where, you know, they're being shipped off to the next team. But, you know, you look at it and you say to yourself, like, okay, well, he could have. Jaden is a guy that, you know, he doesn't play a lot, and I get he has some offensive limitations at this time. But at the same time, you went out there and you got Rico Hines, who's regarded as one of the best, you know, player development coaches. You praise this player development team that you have. So you feel like if you got a guy that has that type of defense, you know, you can be able to develop them to be something. And, you know, the thing is the Boston Celtics felt very highly of them, and they snatched up. So, you know, that's the question and concerns. And you say a second-round pick is more vital and more valuable. But when you make a trade, what else do you expect the guy to say? Like, he's not going to say, well, you know, we let him go for nothing. Nah, he's going to say that pick meant more to us than this player. So, you know what I mean? But, yeah, to me, it's just, you know, you have the pieces in place with Nick Nurse and Rico Hines and all these other people to make sure that this guy can be the guy that you want him to be. And you just let him go. Not to any team. Like, if you let him go to the Washington Wizards,
The Boston factor freaks everybody out, Keith.
Yeah, I mean, here we go. Like, think about Markelle Fultz. Think about all these other guys, how they swindled the Sixers in the past. Like, you don't trade to the Celtics, in my opinion.
Right. Before I let you go, there is one young player that a lot of people are excited about. He's putting in some good minutes the last couple of nights. Talk a little bit about Ricky Council. I mean, people were excited for him when he first came here, but he wasn't going to play all that much. And with guys out, they've depended on him to play, and he's actually been pretty good for the Sixers.
Yeah, man. And you know what it is? We talk about toughness. We talk about heart. We talk about will to win, right? And that's what he does. I mean, you look at it. I mean, the last game they played, you know, here's Ricky Council, and I see him going for a ball against, you know, a pretty good player, and he's, like, pushing the guy out the way and everything like that. There's no back down in him. And I like that. The thing that really impressed me was, I'm going to be honest with you, when I saw Ricky Council and I saw Turk Smith getting like 17 points in the fourth quarters of blowout, like, losses, I don't get impressed by that because that point is just a free-for-all, right? Let's see how many shots you can get up. And even the thing about it is when I saw him do what he did against the Washington Wizards, it's like, okay, that's a tanking team. But these last three games, his numbers weren't as good. But against Cleveland, he comes in late in the game, and he makes a pair of huge foul shots. You know, the other games, he's grabbing these huge boards. He's bringing this energy. And he looks like a guy who, like, if people aren't careful when they get back, he can contend for some rotation minutes. He also looks like a guy that, you know, if the Sixers were wise, you know, they would maybe tear up that two-way contract and sign him to a standard deal, you know, because he's a guy that's going to make money in this league. And I'm not saying max money or anything like that, but he's a legitimate NBA player. And if the Sixers don't do it, somebody else is going to snatch him up, you know, after this season. So I look at him and you're happy for the kid, and because, you know, he's taking advantage of the opportunity. And the last rookie that we've seen do something like this was Tyrese Maxey. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be an all-star or anything like that, but he's taking advantage of the opportunities like Tyrese did, and look at Tyrese now.
Absolutely. Keith, listen, man, I appreciate you coming on as always. You're always so graceful with your time. You enjoy your All-Star break as much as you can, and I'm sure we'll be bugging you down the road.
Nah, man, bug me anytime. I like coming on the show. I appreciate it.
You're the man. There he is, Keith Pompey from the Inquirer, Inquirer.com. Always does a tremendous job covering the Sixers. All right, so coming up next, we had Keith on, and I'm doing this for a reason. Now, we've been talking about building an NFL roster. That will still be open as the show continues over the next 2 hours and change. But I also want to talk about the building of an NBA roster. And I wonder if this one triggers you a little bit because it doesn't seem to be the direction the Sixers have gone in. Talk about that next, right here, 97.5 The Fanatic.
thefanatic.com.
It is 11:51 on the Midday Show, 97.5 The Fanatic. I'm Andrew Salchunas. 11 o'clock hour brought to us by Golden Nugget Jewelers. That's where Philly gets engaged. Hey, real quick, want to give a shout-out to a new little T-shirt company, it seems, to be in the area. John Kincaid brought it over to me. Philly AF, Ray, as you know what that slogan may be.
What's it?
Philly AF.
No, I don't know. I'm not familiar with the slang.
I'll tell you about it during the break, but they dropped off a couple of T-shirts.
Not just T-shirts. We got mugs, too.
Ah, dude, I love a good mug.
Yeah, it's a nice
Look,
mug.
it's a nice shirt
It's
for our YouTube audience. The Ring the Bell,
I like that.
the blue Liberty Bell, the red letters, and it's extremely comfortable. And if it's a comfy T-shirt, like I can wear this at the ballpark. I'll probably pit a little bit. It's gray.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Well, I mean, wear it early on in the season.
That's a good point. Yeah, and then obviously you have to change the color scheme once it's the summer months.
I got a nice mug that has the retro, powder blue with the maroon.
Oh, that's cool. That's
yeah,
good.
with the Philly AF. I'm still trying to figure out what AF means, but
Just Google it.
I'll just wait for you to tell me.
Okay.
But
I'll tell you during the break.
little graffiti in the background for the YouTube audience. If you like this, it looks nice. So.
All right, so we'll get back to this conversation in a second. But I gotta tell you, can I tell you something that I'm just having so much fun with? So, we do the digital content here at the station.
Yes.
We do a lot of articles. We do a lot of lists on 975thefanatic.com. So do us a favor. Check out the website, 975thefanatic.com. I know a lot of the stuff is tweeted out from our Twitter accounts, put out on Instagram, it's put out on Facebook. So it's kind of hard for you to miss it. But, we got a lot of fun stuff. And a lot of it sometimes is the content of the day, reactions to what we had to say, reactions to some of the guests that we have had on. But I'm doing something for next week. So I'm off next week. So I'm telling you right now, I'm not doing work. You will not be able to catch a hold of me. I am off the grid as of tomorrow. All right?
That's right. I'm getting all of the answers to life in the next 24 hours.
Yeah. Ray's actually going to be filling in for me for 3 days, and then I think Connor for the last 2, Thursday
Yeah, I
and Friday,
believe that's
maybe?
the case.
Yeah.
I know there's a schedule behind me, but it's tough to turn
Yeah,
around.
of course. So I'm trying to do some digital content so something can drop every day next week, and I'm doing a theme.
Oh, this is great. I'll be able to rip you every day based on the content that you put out there.
You might be able to. So I'm doing something in honor of the NCAA 25 drop that will be coming this summer. Yesterday we got the news, and there was a little trailer for college football 25 dropping on your latest video game consoles this summer. Iconic game, right? So I'm doing something for each day of the week that's going to drop Monday through Friday, based off of my youth in sports video games, and then something that we talked about yesterday. So one of the things that we talked about yesterday was the cover athletes that we never, it's not on the show sheet, is one of the cover athletes that we didn't get to see. Right, like we talked about Joe Burrow with the cigar in his hand.
Yeah.
Like, how cool would that have been if there's an NCAA cover, but we were robbed of that. The other 4 stories or articles or posts, I guess you could say, because this is not hard-hitting journalism. I have the top 6 songs from sports game soundtracks. That will drop next week. I have the top, I believe that's 6 non-star athletes that I just wreaked havoc with in games. Like, you couldn't beat me. Like, I'll give you one. Eddie House, you could not beat me. Like, if I had Eddie House on my team, I'm dropping 60 because he just hits threes. Couldn't do anything else, but he hits threes. My favorite games, sports games as a child, and then I did the worst cover athlete because we joked around about Peyton Hillis yesterday and the dude Jared Zabransky from Boise State, who did not log a single stat in the NFL, but he was on the cover of a college football game, and I have a couple others. So these will drop each day next week on 975thefanatic.com.
I'm looking forward to it.
I'll schedule them to come out while I'm out. See, look at this. Like, I'm thinking about my vacation and still putting the grind in.
Wow. That's
man.
great. That's why I love you around here.
Oh, yeah, exactly. That's why they keep me here.
Doing your best.
All right, so we just had Keith on. And this kind of is able to move us into the basketball. So if you're just tuning in, today we're doing GM Day. And you put your GM cap on. And I wanted to find out what is the best way to build rosters in each of the respective major sports. And we start off with the NFL because, let's face it, we just started the Eagles offseason. So we know that Eagles offseason is going to be brought up a lot. Got a lot of time until September. You know what I mean? A lot of Eagles talk. And, oh, by the way, this is a very important offseason. They need to completely overhaul the defense. There's going to be hard conversations talking about some of the legends that have played here. Will they come back? Should they come back? Right? This offseason is going to be pretty interesting. But we wanted to just try to find out, in terms of where you spend money, what are the best areas to spend money on a football team? And we had quarterback number 1, offensive line 2, D-line 3, secondary 4. And then we kind of came to terms with, hey, I know you want to pay a lot of money for linebackers. Probably not the best thing to do. Because if you are going to pay more money to linebacker, then of those first 4 position groups, where are you going to take away? Quarterback, O-line, D-line, secondary. Where are you going to take away? We gave you the top 10 linebacker teams that put money into linebackers in terms of cap space. Pittsburgh's number 1, Jacksonville 2, Green Bay 3, Tampa 4, Jets 5, Chargers 6, Vikings 7, Panthers 8, Dolphins 9, Niners 10. So really only one team to write home about, and they were 10th. Do me a favor, find out running back. Because I would like to see where some of these teams are with running back before we move on to the NBA, because we also talk about how running back we should focus a lot more attention on in terms of cap space. So what do we got with the backs, Ray?
So 2023 cap money spent on running back and fullback. They pair them together.
Okay.
This is important for one of the teams on here.
Yeah, use check.
Yeah, okay. Well, way to spoil it. Wow. Trying to work on my teases here. Tennessee Titans, number 1. No surprise there.
No shock in how successful have they been.
They also had the highest cap hit for a quarterback, by the way. 39.5.
Well, that's because they have
10,000 quarterbacks.
Yeah. Right, exactly.
Titans, Raiders 2, Giants 3,
with Saquon,
Saints 4,
Alvin Kamara,
Cowboys 5, 49ers 6, Bengals 7, Cardinals 8, Packers 9, and the Falcons round out your top 10.
All right, so think about this for a second. Man, the Eagles need to pay for a big running back. Man, the Eagles need to pay for a big linebacker. Linebacker, you have one team that was worth note, and that was the 49ers. And I guess you can make the case for the Dolphins, too, and your boy Jordan Love in the pack. Running back, the number 1 team in terms of cap space is Tennessee. They're in trouble, man. And they're going to be in trouble for a while. The Raiders are second. Are the Raiders any close? Like, good luck, Antonio Pierce. Like, I'm rooting for you. But, like, you know. Giants 3 with Saquon. He wants more money, right? Come on. If you're the Giants, you can't give him more money. Because look at what his money's already doing for your team. Saints are 4th because of Kamara, but he was great on his rookie deal. Right? That was the year the Eagles could have potentially faced them if it wasn't for the Minneapolis Miracle. The Cowboys are 5th. The Niners are 6th. So now Cowboys-Niners, you go, all right, these are 2 teams where they're talented. Bengals are trying to get rid of Joe Mixon this offseason. Cardinals are rebuilding. Packers, I don't know what do they keep Aaron Jones? How much longer is Aaron Jones in Green Bay? Like, I don't know what they do there. And then lastly, the Falcons. And the Falcons, they stink. So what we're basically seeing is the teams that are paying more money for running back, the teams that are paying more money for linebacker, those are the teams that aren't winning. So why should we question what the Eagles have been doing? I don't think that we can. Now, I think you have to actually have some talent at linebacker and not what they did, but I don't know how much more money you want them to allocate there. Now, that's NFL, and that's still on the table. You can climb in at 610-632-0975. But let's talk about the NBA a little bit. Now, this one's a hard one for me. Because I wish I had stellar guard play. I do. Now, I'm not trying to get rid of Joel Embiid. He's a freak. He's the best player in the NBA, and the Denver Nuggets won a championship last year with their best player being a center. But how often is the best center winning? Anthony Davis won in the bubble. But a lot of times it's guard and perimeter play. So the Sixers are kind of doing it backwards, right? They have the high-priced center. They tried it with Ben. It just didn't work out. They tried it with Harden. It just didn't work out. Now you're just hoping you can get something out of Tyrese Maxey. But I just wonder if Sixers fans really think they're doing it correctly. You're going to pay Joel Embiid. Obviously, you have to. The guy's a stud. The guy's MVP. He's a max player. But if people do like the fantasy draft, right? I always like doing that stuff when I play, video games. I like to do the fantasy draft, recreate the teams. Would I go with the big man? Probably not.
You're doing the fantasy draft for a video game, no.
Yeah, but what
you're
about
enjoy a nice post move?
But what about in real life too?
You go with the superstar. You go with the best player possible.
Yeah, but are you going? Let's say it's between Joel Embiid and I don't want to say Kevin Durant because he's out of his prime, but I'm trying to think like of a wing player that's like taking the world by storm.
Tatum.
Anthony Edwards, Jason Tatum. Like if it's Tatum versus Embiid, who are you picking? The way the NBA is going, you would say Tatum. Now, we hate the Celtics, so I know a lot of people don't even want to hear that. But the trend of the NBA, Tatum would actually probably make more sense.
So, but when you talk about the trend of the NBA here, like I think we, especially the 2010s, we got so caught up in the guard play because, oh, look, it's Steph, it's the Warriors, it's what they're doing. This is the way of the future. This is the way of the way things are going to be. You mentioned the Nuggets. I mean, I'll take you back a couple more years. Giannis is not your centerpiece of a traditional, not traditional big, but he's certainly not your traditional wing. Like, I'm not sitting out there expecting Giannis to knock down threes to carry me to victory.
Right,
like,
right.
He
Yeah.
distributes the basketball, and that's part of it, and that's part of what Jokic, like a part of it being a big in this league. If you're going to be the dominant force of your team, you got to be able to distribute the basketball. You got to be able to take that pressure off of yourself, and then you need the core around you to be built. I think we've thought for a while the big man was going out, but I think the big man has come back in.
Depending on who the big man is.
And how dynamic the guard play is around him.
Like Joel Embiid works in today's game. Rudy Gobert, not so much. Like the guy that can't do anything really offensively except for catch a lob and maybe do a post move every once in a while. But depending on the team that he's on, right? He's on the number one team in the Western Conference. Now, part of that is because they have Anthony Edwards and what he can do.
And part of that's because Karl Anthony Towns is having
A tremendous season.
tremendous year.
Yeah.
In a different role, in a role that they have maximized what they get from him.
Right.
And it's obviously helped he's had Anthony Edwards. But, I think looking at, and last year I think was, again, part of, kind of changing the trend here and what Jokic they were able to do. You saw if you have that guard play that plays off of the distributing big, the big that commands all the attention, like Jamal Murray, the stretch he had, that's part of why they got where they are. Part of the reason you're so excited about what Tyrese Maxey is growing into is because him playing alongside Embiid, he opens up a whole new dynamic. Part of why I'm so excited for Buddy Hield being here is because of what pressure he alleviates in terms of the defense being able to collapse in on that elbow, collapse in when Embiid's, trying to make something happen there at the center of the floor and make something happen. I think that changes the dynamic. I will continue to be on the side of you could build around Embiid to win it
Me too.
in this league.
Me too. But I'm
Because-
saying if you were to start over,
If you're able to start over and you end up with, Embiid falls to you as like the third pick, the fourth pick, because, there's a younger wing that you like
does he fall to three?
Well,
It's the question.
you look at,
Is he a top 3 pick if the NBA started all over again today?
if you look at the youth, if you look at, the injury history, that would drop him. I'm as big of an Embiid guy as anyone.
I know it would. It would. I mean,
But I don't think it drops him very far. Like, to me, I don't know. The question of does he get to 3 is,
dude, I don't know if that's true. He drops pretty far, I think.
I think if
And I love you know me. I love the big. He's the most disrespected athlete in this city. I'm trying to think. Like, all right, not that it's all about scoring, but hey, let's face it, that is a pretty big deal in the NBA. So, Embiid was at the top before he got hurt. Now he's not even popping up on the list anymore. But I think teams would take Luka before Joe. I think teams would take Shai Gilgeous-Alexander before Joe. teams would take Giannis before Joe, even though he doesn't have as much of an offensive game. It's just he's a freak. I would imagine Embiid goes before Donovan Mitchell. Kevin Durant, age, you probably go Embiid before Durant. But I don't know. Maybe that might not be true. The guy's still averaging 30 a game. Not 30 a game, I'm sorry. 28 a game. I'm not saying like to build for a 10-year franchise. I'm saying if we did a one-off. Right?
A one-off, in that case, Embiid's going much higher. I mean, Embiid, if you have a one-off and you think you could build the optimal team around Embiid, he's right there at the top of your selection.
All right, fine, 3 years.
He's at the top of his game.
3 years.
3 years is still. I think the only thing that comes into question for him is the injury and the long-term prospects of him leading your franchise. Right. If you told me this is a 3-year experiment where we redraft everyone and we make this thing all happen, guess what? I have 3 shots with the best player in the world.
So he's going where, do you think? Like, it's just, I don't know, man. It's not the way the league is going. That doesn't mean you have to always go with the trend, right? We talk about trends all the time. You can be ahead of the curve, and the Sixers and the bully ball thing made sense. They just didn't execute it that way because Brett Brown wanted them to chuck threes up the entire time. And it just didn't work. I don't know. Like, I find it interesting. Like, this is an open-ended conversation, so I'd love to hear your input, whether it's on social media or on the phones. But what is the direction of the NBA of building a roster? And here's the other thing. You look at today's league right now, right? We think that the era of the super team is starting to go on its way out, I think. You look at the top 4 teams in each conference. The Celtics, Tatum and Brown make it I guess you could say, quote-unquote, super team, or not a big 3, but you have 2 legit all-stars. But they drafted both those players, right? The Cavs don't have that. It's Donovan Mitchell and company. The question is, do you believe that the Cavs are going to win a championship? I don't. Like, I'll tell you right now, I don't think the Cavs are winning the NBA Finals. The Bucks, it's Giannis and Dame and Chris Middleton. So I guess you could say that's a big 3, per se.
Yeah, I mean,
the Knicks are the one that's kind of breaking that trend right now. They don't have a super team. They have tremendous talent, but they don't have like the super team. Like they're not the team that you're going, oh man, I can't wait to watch the Knicks because they have Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and James Harden, right? Like Brooklyn used to have.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the super teams are out west.
Well, your top team is the Timberwolves.
Yeah, and listen,
your second team is the Thunder.
Which is, again, a change in everything. But the super teams they've tried to establish, a lot of them reside in the Pacific.
Right, and one of them's the Clippers. They're third.
Yep.
And then the Suns, they're fifth. They're starting to win some games. They're 7 of their last 10. But I don't know. We've also seen that not work out.
Well, yeah,
especially with Durant.
Seen it not work out with them. But again, the blueprint in this league is to get a superstar and fill in everything around them.
Right.
Whether that is their best friend all of a sudden wants to be out, wants to be with them, and you start to figure out the pieces from there, or it's you trying to build out around them. I know for a while there were people that had Embiid's got to be better at, recruiting. He has to be a master recruiter.
Or he's going to go to Miami and join his buddy Jimmy Butler.
Right, because Jimmy Butler can recruit him. But to me, when we come to this conversation about how to build in this league, it's the superstar. It's the one with the most talent, and it's about maximizing it around them.
Right.
That, and it's a very vague, general answer, but I think it's a very vague, the league, as much as we want to say guards run it, yeah, guard play is exciting. We love it. It's entertaining. There's nothing I love more than watching some Steph Curry just victimize the next defender trying to stop him in his way.
Yeah.
You know what I also love watching? Embiid dominate.
It's funny. In the NFL, I think it makes sense. Quarterback offensive line is 1 and 2. Right? Like, I don't see how you can argue against that. In the NBA, I don't think there is one specific route. I just think the trend is guard play. But to your point, like, Joel Embiid is arguably one of the best players in the NBA, and he doesn't fit that. Now, what he does as a center is totally different than, the centers of 20 years ago.
And it's when we start talking about investing in positions, specifically taking it from one sport to another, this league, they love the phrase positionless. We don't have a 1 through 5 anymore. We've got a lot of guys out there that do a lot of different things and make different things work. Embiid, for what he brings to a team, if we were to do the whole, this is a 1-year thing, this is a one-off thing, Embiid is your reigning MVP. Embiid is arguably the best player in the world. Like, there's no question to me. he's going to top that list.
Joe K checks in. He has him between 7 and 12.
That's just disrespectful.
I'll tell you who he has coming up next, and we'll react to it. Also, a bit of news, not really breaking. The Eagles extended Michael Clay. Now, it's funny. Remember, he was the special teams coordinator, for people who don't know. He was on the hot seat going into last year. He ended up being the best coach on the staff. Right? He's better than Sirianni, better than Brian Johnson, and better than Sean Desai and Matt Patricia.
Should Michael Clay be the head coach? 610.
So Michael Clay gets an extension. I don't see how many years, but per Ian Rappaport, Clay, Fangio, and Kellen Moore are all locked up beyond 2024. Well, this is no squat, dude. Like, they're going into the 2024 season. All right, anyways, coming up next. So we did the NFL to start, just did the NBA. We'll get into baseball a little bit, too, because the Phillies are close toward the start of the regular season, and we'll find out if they're building their roster the correct way in terms of what we believe should work. Like, we always talk about how Justin Herbert's the prototype quarterback. What's the prototype roster? That's kind of what we're trying to figure out. 610-632-0975. That's the number to climb in. I'm Andrew Salchun. It's the Midday Show. Also, coming up next, we'll revisit a poll that we put out yesterday. That was like 50-50 throughout the entire show. Let's see where it was at now that we entered almost the 24-hour mark. It may have ended. I'm guessing the results may have ended right about now. We'll give you those next right here, 97.5 The Fanatic. It is 12:20 on the Midday Show, 97.5 The Fanatic. I'm Andrew Salchunas. 12 o'clock hour brought to us by Service First Heating and Air Conditioning. Get 0% financing for 72 months and a $500 rebate when you purchase a complete heating and cooling system from Service First. Learn more at servicefirsthvac.com. And it is a Fanatic Friday, which is presented by Pumpman Philly for 24/7 emergency repair or pump replacement. Count on Pumpman Philly, the guys that know to fix your flow. It is GM Day here on the show. We are building or trying to figure out what the best way to build a roster is in the four major sports. We spent the majority of the show talking about the NFL and where you should allocate money. Not just, look, the answer isn't, well, get Patrick Mahomes and then you're a good team. No, I'm trying to figure out how you should spend money if you are a team in the NFL. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I know we don't agree with what the Eagles have done per se. I know that we don't agree with the lack of attention at linebacker. I know that we don't agree with the lack of attention at running back. Right? This song and dance of finding guys on the final years of their deal every single time isn't exactly what people write home about when it comes to the Eagles. But my point is, I don't know where you would take the money away from to put in linebacker, to put in running back. Right? Are you going to take away from quarterback? No, of course not. I know you're not all Jalen Hurts fans out there, but if it's not Hurts, it was Wentz before, right? Whatever the quarterback is, the quarterback's going to get paid. That's never going to end in the NFL. Then it's protecting the quarterback with the offensive line. You can't ignore defense, so you're going to go defensive line and secondary. So where are you going to take away from those four areas to give money to running back or linebacker? And we've gone through the 10 teams, the top 10 teams with the most money toward their cap that did running back and linebacker, and I'll go through those again later on the show. The 49ers are the only team of note. All the other teams are fringe playoff teams or toward the bottom of the NFL. Like the number one team for running back is Tennessee. The number two team for running back is the Raiders. The number three team is the Giants. They all stink. The Eagles aren't in the top 10 of any of these, by the way. Not in the top 10 of receiver, not in the top 10 of linebacker, not in the top 10 of running back and slash fullback, because we have that added as well. But I'm sure they're in the top 10 of the other areas, so we'll figure that out at some point. But we start now talking about the NBA and how you would build a roster from scratch in the NBA. Names aside, right? Names aside to start. And I think a lot of you would prefer building with a guard or a wing, and it wouldn't be center. Now, NBA is a little bit easier in terms of names, right? Because there's so many stars. And Embiid's a name that pops up. So I asked the question, and again, let me make this clear. If you listen to the show, you know how I love Joel Embiid. I mean, he's a stud. He's the most talented player I've ever seen wear a Sixers uniform. Joel Embiid's a freak. But if we did a fantasy draft today, where would Joel Embiid go? And so Joe K checks it. And this is a 3-year scenario. Joe says the number one pick would be Luka. Then Jokic. Go ahead, what?
Is this the order he has them in? I just thought these were the players that had chance to go before him. This the order.
Maybe
then I got some real questions.
All right, so then maybe this isn't the order. The tweet reads as follows: in an NBA fantasy draft, Joel goes between 7 and 12. And then he mentions names that would all have a chance to go before him in the 3-year scenario. Okay. Luka is a player he mentions, which I agree with. I think Luka would go before Joe.
And I think you'd be crazy to do that.
Jokic, Giannis, Tatum. LeBron can't be on here. Just because it's, even though he's still a stud, and I was just doing a show a couple days ago about how I want him on my team, but I want him with Joel Embiid, right? Durant, Curry, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He has all those players ahead of Joel Embiid. I could tell you're already ready to pop off.
Oh, I'm just saying. I mean, if we want to walk down this path, like maybe you're more entertained by these players, but the two-way impact of Luka versus Embiid, give me a break. Like, sorry on that one. Luka, for his team last season, where were the Mavericks?
Yeah, and they're the 7th seed this year.
Yeah, and the Mavericks broke through, got to a conference finals. That's fantastic. They did. At one point, they did do that. The way they built their team following that moment Well, it hasn't quite panned out to what you would expect for Luka. But, hey, because he entertains you, because you have a lot of fun watching him, you're going to put him up there. If I'm talking about purely putting around a team to get the max out of it, I think I can put a team around Embiid that's going to get further than Luka. That's just the way it is.
It is funny, though. We complain about how, oh, my God, Joel needs the ball too much. That's literally Luka's game.
That's Luka's game. That is Luka's game. And by the way, they're getting so excited this year because, look, he's shown signs of getting better defensively. Guess what I have? Guess what I have in terms of Embiid? I've got a guy that could be first team all defense if I really needed to be, if that was really all he was exerting his effort towards. But okay, fine. You want to go down that path? All right, Luka. We'll put Luka aside for a second. We'll talk about Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant, since the Achilles. So we want to talk 2020, 2021 season to this point. You know who's played more games and considerably more games than Kevin Durant on the floor at a younger age?
Yeah.
That would be Joel Embiid. We complain we're hyper-focused on Joel Embiid and, what's his availability like? You know who's played more games in that stretch? Embiid's played more games than Kevin Durant. Oh, by the way, Kevin Durant right now is sitting here at 35 years old. For a 3-year scenario, we're going to take the guy that's played less games in his mid-30s to the end of his 30s over Joel Embiid, over the reigning MVP. Okay, fine. We could do that. We'll go to Steph Curry. Steph Curry, I love him. I am mesmerized watching him night in, night out. Guess how old he is? 35 years old.
Yes.
We're taking a 3-year scenario. A 3-year scenario. A guy that runs around the floor like crazy, that's able to get into his space, that's able to make things happen, that's going now towards the end of his 30s here.
Still at a very high level, though.
Very high level. Absolutely.
he's still averaging 28 a game and shooting 42% from three.
I would not hate having him on my basketball team. I want that very clear, okay? If Maury is listening right now, listen, I know the reports are you checked in on LeBron and everyone on the Suns.
Check in on Steph.
Yeah, go ahead. Go check in on the Warriors. You know, they're taking Clay off the bench now. Maybe they realize the Splash Bro era is over. Anyways, when it comes to Steph Curry, over a 3-year period, a guy who does all that running around to get himself into space, make things happen, you think the legs might tire a little bit by the end of that 3-year stretch? Potentially. You're potentially looking at
maybe not.
Maybe not. I think I could see a world where things start to tire out, considering I see the other Splash brother coming off the bench and is slowly falling. And again,
dropped 30 last
night. He did.
Dropped 30.
Good for him. He kind of needed it because apparently he teed off on the assistant coaches after he's been the one that's been bad.
Yeah.
You know, there's a reason why that team's no longer at the top of that conference right now. But okay, go down the path with Steph Curry. Now, we talked about LeBron. You mentioned LeBron, that he can't be on there. And I agree with that. LeBron can't be on there. So what, we just eliminated 4 of those guys? So we're down to the...
Yeah, but here's the deal. You're saying all these things. Like, Steph has won.
He has won.
You got to value that, too.
He has won. I'm not building a franchise right now.
He also won again a couple years ago when it was not the same team. Everybody thought the Warriors era was done, and they won again.
Am I building a team to win in 2021-22, or am I building a team to win coming up in this upcoming season?
I think you're not valuing Steph enough.
I love Steph. Like I said, if I come away with Steph in this draft, I'm happy with it.
Right.
I'm not telling you that over the next 3 years.
42% from three. The legs don't seem all that tired just yet.
You telling me this is for a 3-year stretch?
Right.
This is a 3-year stretch right now. The team.
So you would go Joe.
The team led by Steph Curry right now.
Yes.
That a couple years ago won. Where are they sitting in the standings?
Oh, they're where are they at here? They're 10th.
They're 10th.
10th, yeah.
They're 10th. And
8-2 in their last 10, but
and he's been playing.
That's true.
He has been playing.
All right. Look, I hear
Embiid's team, what is it? Embiid's the record with this team with Embiid this year?
Much better.
What, 26-8 is the record with him on the floor?
All right, well, it's interesting. I love you. I love your passion for this, Ray. GM Ray.
Yeah, listen, I think you can build a successful win around Embiid, and I also think it's disrespectful to suggest that he would go anywhere outside of the top 5. Forget even outside of the top 3.
Now, before we get to the phones, it's 610-632-0975. As we continue to react to this, do me a favor. While I talk to Uncle Frank, because that could go on for days, figure out where the Eagles are at with O-line and D-line in the top. Well, do the top 10, O-line and D-line against the Cap. See if the Eagles are in there. But a bit of news, Jimmy Garoppolo is being suspended 2 games for violating the NFL's performance-enhancing substances policy. The policy violation is related to him using a prescribed medication without having a valid therapeutic use exemption per sources. Now, this is a big deal because for some reason or whatever policy, he no longer gets his guaranteed money. And it looks like the Raiders just going to outright release him now because of it. Power move. And now we kind of knew that he was on his way out eventually. But the guy gets suspended, which takes away his guaranteed money. And they go, oh, well, then we're gonna get rid of this guy now.
Can I say something? Trust tree, just two of us talking here.
Yes.
He deserves to be suspended for a year. You take performance-enhancing drugs and lose your job to Aiden O'Connell, you don't deserve to be in the National Football League next season.
Does he win the Super Bowl if he was on this 49ers team? Purdy or Garoppolo?
He lost his job to Aiden O'Connell, man.
Does he get another shot? He was on his way out of San Francisco, and nobody was going after him. And then eventually the Raiders get him. And now he's on his way out of the Raiders.
Well, when your boy Billy B gets a job, I'm sure he'll need a quarterback. So they can reunite.
Jimmy G.
Yeah.
How old is Garoppolo at this point? Garoppolo is 32. Still got years on him. I wonder what. Oh, man, it's interesting.
Also, does he lose the deal he got at the Vegas strip clubs because of this?
Yes, I think so.
Is that also part of the violation?
I think he lost that already.
Did that already go?
Yeah, because he was no longer the starter.
Oh, was it just as long as he was a starter?
I think.
I'm
pretty sure he lost that already.
I'm just saying, there seems to be a lot of fallout from this. But seriously, you took performance-enhancing drugs, lost your job, Dayton O'Connell.
Dude, he would have gotten
2 games. That's it.
He would have gotten $11.25 million guaranteed, and he lost it because of this. I wonder if you know how like Howie definitely worded things a certain way so that it seemed Hassan Reddick wanted out. You don't think somebody at the Raiders knew about some prescribed medication that Jimmy G got?
The last name Davis. Say, hey, Roger.
You know, hey, Raj. I found this pill bottle in the. Roger,
I appreciate you stopping by this week for the Super Bowl. You mind looking into this? You really used to get out of this contract.
Inside Garoppolo's locker, and I'm concerned about his well-being. Oh, he's gonna get suspended, and now his guaranteed money goes away. Oh no. Let's go to Uncle Frank. What's up, Uncle Frank?
Happy festive Friday, friends.
How are you?
How we doing?
Great. How are you?
I'm great. You know that. I wake up, I'm great. Andrew, I heard what you said about me, but that's okay. I have a high opinion.
You're the man.
Myself. Fine. Listen. Oh, I got to give Ray, I don't know if he's still there.
He's there.
I got to give him an attaboy finding that. What was the name of that website?
I don't know.
I don't know what you're talking about.
We're talking about the where we're talking with the cap here? Spot Track?
Yeah.
Yeah, Spot Track's been around. But yeah, go Ray.
Thank you, Uncle Frank. I appreciate that.
Uncle Frank just discovered what Spot Track is today, ladies and gentlemen.
I still don't know what it is. Anyway, real quick, and you really think the eel was chasing LeBron?
No, I don't think he was actually chasing him, but I do appreciate that he called, and I do appreciate the fact that he's got a player option, and he may want to get out. And, why not start showing some interest? Show the respect to the king.
Yeah, phone call. I mean, I heard he's also trying to bring Wilt Chamberlain back. But anyway, all right, let's put our collective GM hats on, right?
Okay.
Ooh. Andrew, you had me salivating when you mentioned Snead on, was it Kay Miller show? I mean, I would love him here. So Howie needs, and he's done this before multiple times, you know, got to get his abacus and calculator out of his pocket protector because
figure it out.
I would love Snead. I'd like him to retain Reddick, and he's got to ink up Smith, right?
Yeah, Devontae, you basically will probably try to work on that this offseason.
Yes. But if anyone can do it, he can do it. He's got the wizardry.
Right.
Listen, enjoy your week off. You going anywhere?
To be determined.
You shoot me a
yeah.
What do you call it?
I'll shoot you a DM, Uncle Frank. I appreciate the call. I'll let him know. All right. So, do you have the top 10s for offensive line?
Of course.
All right. Because this is where I'm fascinated by this because I just know how we are in Philadelphia. We want linebackers, we want running backs, but you're gonna have to take away from somewhere else. So let's do O-line first. We love the offensive line. We're probably the only city that knows all 5 offensive linemen, right? Remember a couple of years ago they did the photo shoot It's a cult following here with the offense. Like Jeff Stoutland.
They got a commercial with Tide. I mean, Fletcher Cox is in it too, but they got a commercial.
Yeah, but a lot of the O-line. Yeah, a lot of love.
Oh, yeah. Now I remember the shoot. I remember I spent the
Photo
night,
shoot?
yeah,
Yeah.
the night of the second and third rounds of the draft on these airwaves, debating Tyler Steen and Cam Jurgens. You know,
Right.
that's how much we care.
Yeah, we
here.
care about linemen here. And the Eagles care about linemen, clearly. Well, people want more linebackers and more running backs, but where are you going to take the money away from? So where's the top 10 in terms of cap hits for offensive line in the NFL?
Again, 2023 cap hits going offensive line. Let's go all the way to the top. Detroit Lions, Indianapolis Colts.
Makes sense with the Lions, Sewell, and then they paid Vitae not too long ago. Colts second.
Baltimore Ravens,
All right.
Atlanta Falcons,
Ooh.
Cincinnati Bengals. You throw enough money at a problem, maybe it'll go away.
That's funny.
Houston Texans, Pittsburgh Steelers, Philadelphia Eagles,
Okay.
Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Buffalo Bills. And if we haven't hit 10, then the Cowboys are right there afterwards.
So that's funny. So, all right. So, O-line. Lions, NFC Championship game. Colts missed the playoffs. Ravens, AFC Championship game. Falcons missed the playoffs, but their quarterback sucks. Bengals, it's fascinating because Joe Burrow's still never under protection. Texans, Tunsil's on there, and that's a smart thing for them to do with C.J. Stroud, right? You got a young quarterback. You want to protect them. They were in the playoffs. Steelers, fringe playoff team, but they're in the playoffs. Eagles, in the playoffs. Now, fell apart, but they were in the Super Bowl just a year before. Jags fell apart. Bills in the playoffs. So what? 4 of these teams didn't make the playoffs. Colts, Falcons, Bengals, Jags. Bengals don't make the playoffs because Burrow's hurt. They're a playoff, right? We can agree that they're a playoff team.
Who's to say? They got off to the slow start.
They're a playoff. Well, that's because Burrow was hurt because he in camp. So basically, fine. I'll say 6 out of the 10 teams were playoff teams when it comes to offensive line.
But the Bengals are an interesting case. When we talk about what the Eagles have invested into the linebacker position, and we keep banging the drum on, well, they haven't drafted, and they haven't succeeded in drafting that position. The Bengals fall into kind of the opposite when it comes to the offensive line. We're talking about, well, good teams invest in this. Well, invest in what? Do they have enough in their offensive line? They're you're throwing resources at it. When we use the, umbrella phrase of resources, we could talk about draft picks, we could talk about using money. Not all these teams wisely spend that money. You can throw a lot of money at a problem. Hey, we've got a team in town that knows all about throwing money at a problem. Don't have enough talented players. The Phillies were able to just go out there, throw money here, throw money there. Let's see if we can patch up the holes. Right. The Bengals could be that example with the offensive line of throwing money at a problem and hoping you're able to fix it that way because you haven't been able to fix it yourselves. And you see the rest of the league, hey, they're making it work with the offensive line. We've got to be able to protect Joe Burrow.
Yeah, so out of the 4 that we have so far with the top 10s, receiver, O-line, linebacker, running back / fullback, O-line had the most teams in the playoffs with 6 of them. And again, the Bengals, I would imagine, are a playoff team if Joe Burrow doesn't get hurt. Linebackers, there's 5 of them. The running backs, there's only 3. Like, that's the biggest thing. Like, you can't pay running back. You can't. And those 3 teams were Cowboys, Niners, Packers. And the Packers, okay, good, Aaron Jones, he's not a top running back. And then Cowboys, Niners, they were in the playoffs regardless. Right, like the 49ers, before they brought in Christian McCaffrey, they were a playoff team. That's more a Shanahan thing. But 3 out of the 10 made the playoffs. The other 7, and look at the top 4 teams: Tennessee, Vegas, New York Giants, and the Saints. Like they are in trouble. All right, do you have defensive line for me?
Yes,
All
I have
right.
defensive line here.
We got D-line.
Let's go down this path right now. Defensive line. We've got, sorry, all of a sudden this thing decided to stop loading. So now I'm going to continue to filibuster for you until we
That's
get
okay.
there.
How about we'll do it
Chiefs?
next.
Oh,
We got a minute left. So
Yeah.
we'll do that next. We'll hear what the top 10 D-line teams are. And then we also have to do baseball. We have to figure out what the appropriate way to build a baseball roster is, because I think people like the way the Phillies are built. But if you want to talk about trends, like baseball to me is the biggest change in trend when it comes to building a roster. because it's not the way it used to be. It's not just, get a couple guys in the middle of your order, make sure the other guys in the order can hit singles and get on base, right? Like, it's boom or bust, and it's bullpen. So baseball's changed a lot, but do you agree with the changes is another question. So we'll do that coming up next. We still have that Phillies poll that I got to update you on. So we'll get into this coming up next. 610-632-0975. Best show ever. They'll be coming your way at 2 o'clock, so make sure you're listening for that as well. So the Phillies poll, the top 10 teams for cap space in the defensive line this past season and where they ranked. Did they make the playoffs? You heard Uncle Frank bring up L'Jarius Sneed. There was an ESPN article. I'll repeat what that was all about. A player that the Eagles should be in on. L'Jarius Sneed, 2-time Super Bowl champion quarterback. I think that moves the needle for a lot of people. I'm Andrew Salchunas. It's the Midday Show right here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Irish getting set for the state.
97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
It is 12:48 on the Midday Show. I'm Andrew Salchunas, 97.5 The Fanatic on GM Day. Talking about what the best way is, or what are the best ways to build rosters in the major sports. Because I feel like we don't always agree with what our teams do, but sometimes that might be the best way, specifically the way the Eagles have been doing it over the last 20 years, really. And we talk about how much money is being spent in certain areas. And when it comes to running back and linebacker, two areas that a lot of Eagles fans want the Eagles to change their philosophy. If you remember, Howie Roseman was asked about that during his end-of-the-season press conference, and he was asked about the whole linebacker philosophy. He goes, well, you know, we believe in Nakobe Dean, and we spent a high draft pick on him, right? So that's great, all they believe in Nakobe Dean. I don't think they're going to go out there and try to find a replacement for Nakobe Dean and pay some guy $10 million a year. Everybody was shocked that T.J. Edwards didn't come back. Really, why? They weren't going to pay him that kind of money. He wasn't going to get that kind of money here. So then the question is whether or not that's exactly what they should do. Do you agree with what the Eagles do? And so what we've done so far is we've looked at the top 10 teams and where they spend money in certain areas of the field. The Eagles are not in the top 10 of wide receiver, even with A.J. Brown. They probably will be eventually with Devontae Smith. They're not in the top 10 with linebacker. They're not in the top 10 with running back. And out of the top 10 teams last year, just 4 teams made the playoffs that had top 10 paid wide receivers, 5 for linebacker, and 3 for running back. And 2 of the 5 for linebacker are 9 and 10. So it's not like they're in the top 5. And number 1 is Pittsburgh, which made a playoff team, but do you really believe them as a playoff team, or are they more of a fringe playoff team? So we also want to do baseball a little bit, but first, before we do baseball, right, let's finish it off with the defensive line. Who are the top 10 teams in terms of how much they spend money on the defensive line in the NFL?
Top 10 in terms of spending for your defensive line in the NFL. Again, 2023 cap here. Take you the Chiefs, Bengals.
All right, so the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's a good start.
The Super Bowl champion Chiefs.
Chiefs, Bengals, Colts, 49ers,
Okay.
Bills, Cowboys, Saints, Steelers, Dolphins, and then the Eagles. I don't know if the Eagles come in 11th or 10th there.
They're 10.
10, right
All
there.
right, so
Number 10.
when it comes to defensive line, not only do you have the Super Bowl winning Kansas City Chiefs and the 49ers who played in the Super Bowl, you also had the Bills and Cowboys, Steelers, Dolphins, and Eagles. 7 of the 10 teams are in the playoff.
I'd say that the assessment of it need to be right there with offensive line is right there in being correct.
Yeah, so offensive line was 6 of the top 10 teams in terms of cap space. So the Eagles are doing it right, dude. It's sometimes not. Look, are they picking the right players all the time? No, they're not. But the Eagles are doing it right. I mean, it's not just an Eagles thing. It's an NFL thing. You're seeing it right here.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's about the extreme and it's about hitting. Like that's been a big piece of all this. Like when we talk about how much the Chiefs have spent, Bolton, and I think I said earlier he's a third. He was a second-round pick. But still, he became a serviceable player for them that they could put at the middle of their defense and they could expect him to make plays. You haven't had that. That's been a big issue for this group. It's about adding to that and getting, again, premium for what you want to pay and the positions that you don't want to pay. Like you have to maximize what you're getting for what you're paying. That's why the Swift deal was one that you sign off on the time because, okay, the running back position, you don't want to spend a lot of money, or you're getting a really talented player and you're getting him in the last year of his rookie deal.
Right.
Good stuff.
Right.
Linebacker side, it's okay, you got a guy on his rookie deal, but is he really enough? And you can't just pick from the top of the tackles leaders from years ago and expect that to continue to work for you.
Yeah, and it's just it's going to be interesting, and I wonder if these trends. I don't know if these trends ever change. I think it is the right way to do it. Offensive line, defensive line. It's the right way to do it.
It's the right way to do it. It's just now it's about adding those other places, and you've already made the investment. That's the thing on those lines. Like the way things change this offseason with veterans moving on those two sides, you're going to have to fill in. You're going to have to believe in the guys filling in. But you've made you've made a lot of the marquee investments you will there.
Right.
About hitting on the other ones that build out the rest of the team. Because there's a reason why, okay, they were a playoff team. They count as one of the playoff teams when we build out, okay, they invested defensive line, offensive line. But what stopped them from being over the top was the fact that it was really those investments, and that was it. That was what hit for you.
Right, exactly. It was where they didn't really invest, and none of those hit. Like linebacker. Yeah, it's amazing. All right, so for baseball. So this one's interesting because baseball, I said it before the break, and I want to see if you agree with me. Baseball is the one where the trends are changing the most in terms of building a team. Is that correct, in your opinion?
I guess, yeah.
I mean, look, Kyle Schwarber's a leadoff hitter.
I mean, yeah, it's the game is changing.
The game is changing, right? So building it's gone are the days of the guy that hits 300, unless it's like Corbin Carroll, right? Like gone are those, like you don't see that as much anymore. It's, hey, as long as this guy gets on base and if he provides some power, he can find a way on this team. Like I always talk about how would Ichiro be on a baseball team right now, a Major League Baseball team?
I understand the point you're trying to prove.
Like,
would Ichiro be allowed to play the game that Ichiro played? Would a team look at him and say, no?
Right, exactly. Like, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for a guy with pop. And we're looking for a guy who can hit home runs and blah, blah, blah. Especially as an outfielder, right? Like, we're talking about Johan Rojas. Like, we're excited that he's a great glove, but I don't know if the guy can hit it all. So should he even be considered? I know he's going to be on the opening day roster. Should he even be considered in today's baseball?
I think we also are taking the extreme sample size of the postseason.
It was bad.
It was bad.
At the end of the regular season, he was actually hitting pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, it was a disaster.
He finished around 300.
I'm not letting him off the hook for the postseason, and I'm not sitting here saying that I think he's going to be, a 300 hitter in the bigs coming up. It was a disastrous end of the season. I'm willing to let the kid play. Again, this is coming from a guy that wanted them to add to the outfield anyways.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
So it could, but not talking the absolute here. I don't think the guy can hit at all. I don't think. I'm hard-pressed to believe it's going to be as bad as the postseason was.
So what is the right way to build a baseball team these days? Like, I still believe in the power-hitting corner spots, which the Phillies don't have that at third.
Nope.
They have a good hitter. Alec Boehm's a tremendous hitter, right? But he doesn't have that. He doesn't have that pop. And I still believe in that.
Oh, I still believe that 100%. If you want to talk about positions where you could upgrade, looking at the rest of the league,
yeah,
Alec Boehm's was nice. Homegrown guys, you feel good about him. I think they're in arbitration right now, what he's going to make versus, what you're getting. Okay, fine. You think he's gotten better defensively. Overall, like that corner infield spot,
I mean,
you could do better there.
So I'll compare him to the team that they have beaten in the playoffs the last 2 years. And the Braves, right? I got Olsen Acuna, first base, right field. And then I got Riley at third. And then Ozuna doesn't play left field anymore because he's the DH, but, pre-universal DH. I mean, that was your corner. That's 120 home runs. Minimum. Right? Like, Olsen's hitting 40+. Acuna's hitting 40+.
To play devil's advocate, go from the other side here. If you're going to give Ozuna credit for being in left, do we get to give Schwarber credit?
Sure.
So, you're still being outslugged there considerably.
Considerably. I'm close. Boehm holds you back big time when it comes to that.
And there is no comparison of Austin Riley and Alec Boehm.
No.
There's no. Riley is head and shoulders.
He's a better third baseman player. Third baseman, too. Like, he's.
Oh, yeah, easily. He's a better baseball player.
Sometimes we have to be honest with ourselves. Like, there are better players on rival teams.
And that's
Austin Riley's a better third baseman than Alec Boehm. I know he's cool. He's got the hair. He's tall. He's, people like him when he's drinking the beers in the clubhouse and he's a kid and all that. Yeah, it's great. I love it too. I'm all about Alec Boehm. I'd rather have Austin Riley. I'd rather have Acuna than Nick Castellanos. Like, is that a hot take?
Now you're getting bold.
You know what I mean? Like we can be honest with ourselves. But yeah, when it comes to building a MLB roster, I still think first, third, left, and right need to be your power hitters. But talk about trends and how it's changing. Like second baseman and shortstops, it's It's no longer the guys that are hitting average, right? Like Jimmy Rollins and Chase Utley, that was kind of head of the time, where your middle infield was also hitting you 20-plus bombs, 25-plus bombs, and playing good defense. I mean, that's changed a lot. And you think you have it with Turner. You hope.
You hope.
You hope that you have it with
Been
Turner.
a long decade if you don't.
I don't think Stott's ever going to hit 25 home runs, but he's going to be a consistently good hitter. I mean, he could end up being in the leadoff spot one day. Who knows? I mean, I don't know what they end up doing with Schwarber. But when you're building an MLB roster, like, isn't it still start with pitching? Like, I feel like it has to.
Yeah. I mean, I would start with pitching.
Look at what has held the Braves out.
It's consistently
Look at
been.
what's held the Dodgers back.
For the Braves, the last 2 seasons, it's been, and this has been kind of what it seemed like they were searching for in the moves they're making. Like, it's been the Game 3 starter.
Yeah.
It's been, okay, the Phillies are able to split with you down in Atlanta. You go back to Citizens Bank Park, and when you go back to Citizens Bank Park, do you have a starter that can match Aaron Nola? That was the biggest fear when we went back there and we were talking about, is Nola going to be back? Is Nola not going to be back? What are they going to do there? When the Braves were mentioned with it, to me, if the Braves had got Nola, that's your difference.
Oh, yeah.
That has been.
No, I'd be terrified. Even though I'm not the biggest Nola guy, like, I would not want him to go to Atlanta.
No, not at all. I mean, that's been the biggest difference. It's been who you've had on the mound in Game 3 against the Braves. Like, yeah, the bats have been fun for the Phillies, but, I mean, Strider, again, this is from a Reese guy. That pitch that Strider threw Reese that we get the bat spike for, there is not a pitch in baseball that a hitter would want to see more than what he grooved down there for that.
Same with Castellanos.
Yeah.
Last year, he threw him 2.
But when
Did he go yard off him twice that game, Castellanos?
I think so.
I think he did. He grooved him 2 fastball.
But, like, with that one specifically, like that Game 3, that's, again, your changing moment of the series. Your changing moment of the series is because on one side you had Nola, who was ready to go to the moment, and you had Strider, who was at that point on fumes, and again, probably shouldn't have been put in that situation. But that was back-to-back years where their Game 3 start has been the difference. Pitching has been the difference maker. Pitching, for what you got out of pitching in this postseason, I know people will go back and be frustrated with, I can't believe what happened. Nola, 4 runs in Game 6, or I can't believe. Pitching didn't lose you those series.
Right.
Batters did.
The bats went quiet, and here's the thing. So our man Bradley Ryder checks in. He says, I'm not saying anything new, but I think you need to mix in a rate of power and contact. Arizona exposed us last year with our chase rate, which is true.
It is true.
Like, that's actually correct. Now, here's the deal. I'm still taking the Phillies lineup over the Diamondbacks lineup. I don't think I'm talking crazy in saying that.
No.
But you have to change approach. Like, you have to. It can't just be boom and bust the entire time. Especially when you go on the road and you're playing in that ballpark where you can't hit home runs as well. Like, that's the thing. The Diamondbacks also kind of built a roster to their stadium, it seems, a little bit, right? Like, not that you can completely do that. Like, you got to take best players available, but that roster, that lineup almost makes sense in that ballpark. Doesn't fly as much. You saw it hurt the Phillies. Now, they also got hurt by swinging at pitches in the dirt. Like, Castellanos' helmet's flying off every single swing.
Yeah, and we really want to go down this rabbit hole, and they're hurt by whoever put together that pitching plan for Game 4. But I realized we had this conversation the other day about being over it stuff. I went after the show. It was yesterday. I think we had this conversation. Every time I talk about this, I realize more and more how not over it I am.
No, I'm never going to get over it.
No, I'm not.
I'm literally never going to get over that playoff. Somebody's going to tweet us at one point saying, just get over it. I'm never going to get over it.
No.
That was a complete collapse.
Because now that we've walked down this rabbit hole, I'm upset in here. I'm kind of fuming again.
You're already bummed out by it?
Yeah. Because you're right. And it's, Diamondbacks won.
But ultimately, pitching's still the most important thing in baseball. Like, even though trends are changing, it still comes back down to pitching. Now, the biggest thing is when it comes to pitching, the biggest change is it's not the same. It's not find the guy that can give you 7-8 innings. Those days are long gone. Now it's give me a guy that can give me 5 innings and build the bullpen, which having a good bullpen has always been important. I mean, look at the Yankees. Like, Mariano Rivera's just getting 6 out, 7 out, 8 out saves every single time he wants to. So that's a pretty big deal. But it seems like it's more important today than it used to be because guys aren't pitching as deep in the game.
Yeah, and I think there is still value in though having the guys that could do that. Like I think the
two inning reliever is a big deal nowadays.
Yeah, the 2 inning reliever. But going back to the point you make on the starting pitching, like we've seen the value of having starters that are willing to take the ball. Like there was a whole felt like weeks of content dedicated to debating whether or not Zach Wheeler came out too early.
Right, exactly.
That. Like,
right.
We've underrated it a little bit because I think we've seen kind of one of the things that have gone against that trend where we've had two pitchers that have been able to do that deep into seasons and having that value. And that was part of the value when we talked about bringing Aaron Nola back. All these different options, for everyone that was, Blake Snelled up, like how deep into a game is he going to go? How deep into a season? How many innings is he going to give you? What does that do? We talk about the bullpen and the taxing, practices of the bullpen that we've seen over the last year plus. I remember the conversation. Belotti's pitching again today.
Right. It was every day to start the season.
It becomes worse when over a season you've got players or teams that their pitchers don't go deep enough where those bullpens get taxed even more.
Oh, that's the Giants, and that's why they collapsed toward the end of the season the way that they did.
And that's manager philosophy.
Right. Well, absolutely. Now, by the way, we had a poll running yesterday that I found fascinating, and the results are incredible. I might revisit this when I come back from my time off. So the poll I randomly hit me yesterday while we were doing the show. I asked the question, have the Phillies reached the territory of wake me up for the playoff run in terms of expectations for you? Because I know that this team, the last couple of years, have been beloved. I mean, there's been a relationship between the players and the fans that I don't know if I've ever seen before. Like, the fact that they're going to Xfinity Live afterward and partying with everybody, riding the bull, and not just in the VIP area, riding the bull, right? You heard those stories about the Broad Street Bullies, right? They would play a game and then go to the local bar afterward and, hang out with everybody. You hear every once in a while a player having that kind of relationship. Like Joel Embiid used to run around South Philly, right? But for a full team, the way that you saw this Phillies team do it, it was incredible. But ultimately, they ended up taking a step back, choked away a series, and now it's, I don't know, has it reached put up or shut up time? And so the question, have the Phillies reached the territory, wake me up for the playoff run in terms of expectations for you? Ray, when the show ended yesterday, no was in the lead. But the final results, yes, at 50.3%, a slim margin, 49.7% said no. That's amazing to me that, I don't know, I just kind of asked the question. I didn't think it would be a 50-50 split like that. That's fascinating to me, man. And I don't know. I wonder if somebody's vote changes from we ran this poll on February 15th. Does that change when we run it again April 15th? Or if it's May 15th and the Phillies are actually contending with the Braves for first place in the division? Will it be more so people just enjoying the moment? I just found it interesting that it's 50-50 like that more than half now are like, yeah, wake me up when it's playoff time. What does that mean this season?
I don't know. I can't believe it's this close. And then there's people in the replies, I just enjoy the ride. I enjoy it. This is baseball. And I would say this is sports, but this is baseball. It's a long season and enjoy it while you have it. I'm kind of surprised in that one. I think there's a certain segment of the fan base that has the sentiment of, division means something. I want to see that. Like, it's not just about the playoff run for me. It's not so much about that. I'd love to see them compete. I'd love to see them get off to a better start. Like, that's a massive part of this. So I can't get to the wake me up in the playoff run because there's just so much that happens within the season. So much.
Yeah, you're gonna enjoy it.
I'm not in the camp of we talked about Sixers like educational approach for 162. The expectations are dialed up more with what I know this team has been and where this team has gone, and not knowing came into the Sixers season with a lot of question marks. I still have question marks about this group that ultimately will be answered closer to the end of this, but I do want to see. I have higher expectations, but the educational approach is still kind of there for what it's happening, but
Right.
I can't be wake me up in the playoff run for this team because there's just so much I want to see.
So M. Schmal checks in. He says, I don't know if that's the way to put it because I'm going to watch all season. I will, however, say it's World Series or bust. Well, that's two different conversations. Like, the Sixers are in the wake me up territory. Right? That's basically what I compared it to. Like, are they in where the Sixers are at? Because there are Sixers fans that, yeah, you're going to watch, but nothing matters at this point until they get out of the second round. For the Phillies, have they reached that territory where nothing matters? Like a nice, fun win in June. Like, are you? Yeah, you'll celebrate if you're at the ballpark, and if your bet hits. But like, are you going to be going? Yeah, this is so much fun. Like, whatever happens this year happens. Like, no, the vibes of, man, I can't wait to just have fun and watch this team play dancing on my own. Like, those days I think are behind for a lot of people. So I'd love to get your reactions to that as well as we close out the show. We got another segment coming your way. To close out the midday show today. The best show ever obviously continues the programming on the Fanatic. They come your way at 2 o'clock with Tyrone and Ricky and Jen. And so let's finish off with that. And also, we had to get into the NHL roster building. And I saved this one for last because we're watching it now. Right? Like, the way the Flyers are building the roster, are they doing it the right way with today's NHL? And I remember when when Keith Jones first came on these airwaves and gave his plan of attack, I loved what he said. I will remind you what he said when he was on these airwaves. I forget exactly when it was, but it was after he was hired. And whether or not they're doing it correctly. And there's something I just desperately need that I think this team completely ignored for a long time. And I hope that they're going in this direction. And I think they are going in this direction. You could tell that just by their most recent draft. The number to climb in is 610-632-0975. On GM Day, how would you build a roster for any of the major respective sports? Like, the stuff that the teams are doing now in Philadelphia, do you agree with what they're doing? I know a lot of you do not agree with linebacker or running back, but I can tell you, just based off of some quick Google searches, the teams that are doing running backs and linebackers at top money, they're the teams that are struggling the most. The teams that are focusing on offensive line and defensive line, they're the ones that are having the most success. So the Eagles are doing it correctly in terms of what the rest of the league are doing it too. 610-632-0975. Also, reaction to that poll. Have the Phillies reached the territory? Wake me up for the playoff run in terms of expectations for you. 50.3% of people with the final results ended up voting yes. That's shocking to me, man. I'm Andrew Salchunas. It's the Midday Show right here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Flyers getting set for the state.
It is 1:19 on the Midday Show. I'm Andrew Salchunas on a Fanatic Friday. Fanatic Fridays presented by Pumpman Philly for 24/7 emergency repair or pump replacement. Count on Pumpman Philly, the guys that know how to fix your flow. And the 1 o'clock hour is brought to us by Ferguson HVAC Line, Conklin. Attention HVAC contractors for equipment, parts, and supplies for every heating and cooling job. Visit one of Ferguson's counter locations in Ben Salem, King of Prussia, Pennsauken, or Westchester today. Before I get back to the phones, and before we get back to the topics on hand, I told you last night I had a wonderful, wonderful day. So my wife and I are both off next week. Both took off from work, so we got some time to spend together. And Christy went down the shore yesterday to get Cooper a chance to see Grandmom and Grandpa, but she spent the night down there with Cooper. So I had the house to myself, dude. I forgot how nice that could be. She finally left late, like 6 o'clock at night. A shocker, packing. Why would you do that early? I know I'm a freak and I pack like 4 days early, but whatever.
Did you just say 6 o'clock at night was late?
Well, I was kind of thinking she'd be down, like leave at like 2 or 3, and then I'd have like more time. But that's okay. Yeah, it was nice. She was packing, so I had one-on-one time with Coop, which is nice. And so they leave, and I had some time to myself. I had my McGurk's, the leftover sandwich, the cutlet, which was just tremendous.
I'm hungry thinking about it.
Thanks again to McGurk's for dropping off the food yesterday. And, dude, I know when you have time to yourself, you're trying to think, like, what do I not get the chance to do? What can I get done? Can I be productive? Nah, dude. I sunk it on the couch. And for my gamers out there, you'll understand, I fired up Warzone. And I played for 4 hours. Nonstop. Now, the best part was I had, my 2 best friends also played. So, it's tapped in on the old Discord, right? And for 4 hours, we just talked, laughed, and played Warzone. And, I know there's people that do that every day. I don't get the chance to do that anymore. And, oh, my God, was it an absolute treat. I came in here today spry. I slept. I woke up at 4. I thought I heard him crying. I'm just so used to it. I woke up at 4 o'clock thinking he was crying. It was the wind outside. It was so windy last night. So it was windy. I was up from 4 to 5, but then I fell back asleep till 7 something. Wow. Which was just, I feel great. Usually this is when I'm starting to, all right, I need to get home for that 2 o'clock we're done. Get home by 3:30, get the 3 o'clock cup of coffee in me to continue the day. I'm good right now. I might not need a cup of coffee. I might have one just because I do like the taste of coffee. But, it was yesterday was great.
Very happy for you.
Thank you.
I am still tired.
Yeah.
I took last night to clean up. I have not been around the
you've
apartment.
been traveling so much.
Right. So I have both the roommates there. It's kind of like we all kind of caught up, honestly. We all went different places for the Super Bowl. And then I had plans Monday night. I left Tuesday. I hadn't seen, legitimately gone close to a week without seeing the roommates. Probably 4 or 5 days. We all just kind of exist in the same space. So I kind of came back hey, can I do anything here to make your guys' lives easier? I've been gone. So I was cleaning.
That's very nice of you.
Yeah, I was taking
admirable.
care. Well, I also had a night where I didn't do anything, aside from being at the apartment. Because my life right now is a lot of not being at the apartment.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, you're all over a man about town, man.
Well, that's where I was kind of walking around that conversation.
Yeah.
I'm working quite a bit, but I'm also, out
but
quite a
when
bit.
you're not working, you're using your time off to go out. I did that.
Yeah.
Hey, you're right. Back in my day.
Oh, jeez.
Guy
turns 30 and now he's got the.
You're young. You got it.
Oh, stop.
The other thing, so I didn't watch it, full disclosure, but while I was just chilling out on my couch, I saw the shot. Caitlin Clark is amazing, dude. She is amazing. It's one of these where, shame on me, and it's not because it's women's basketball, right? Would you not watch because it's women's? No, it's because when we do this, we watch the Sixers to talk about the Sixers. We watch the Flyers to talk about the Flyers. We watch the Phillies to talk about the Phillies. We watch the Eagles to talk about the Eagles. And then, yeah, like in my downtime, I want to watch LeBron. Right, I want to watch Patrick Mahomes. I want to watch the GOATs, right? So I can say, like, I watched these guys when I was younger. But I need to sit down and watch an Iowa women's basketball game at some point because what she is doing is absolutely incredible. She broke the record for most points in women's college basketball history yesterday, the all-time scoring record. And she does it with a 3 from the logo. They get the rebound. She pushes it up past half court, pull up, bang, like the way Steph does. Right? So, like, here's the deal. Like, for anybody that's not watching because it's women basketball, that's wrong, right? Like, I don't watch the Union. I only have so much time in my life, right, to watch the sports that we talk about the most. And so we're not going to be talking much Iowa women's basketball, right? Like, forgive me. We're not really talking about college basketball to begin with. Men's or women's in this city. But Caitlin Clark's just a phenom, and she's going to be a ton of fun to watch when she gets into the WNBA. She's already a ton of fun to watch.
49 points.
49 points, and a pull-up 3 from the logo to break the record.
And it was right at the beginning of that game, too.
Yeah, it was in the first quarter. She made it, what, it was 9-5, I think the score was?
Yeah, 8-5. Yeah. She needed 8 points. Like, it was insane. I mean, it's insane to watch her play. And, it's fun for me and the other gigs seeing as players that play at that level, watching her play at that level is really, really cool. And it was, last night, and I made the joke on Twitter last night, but she celebrated for half a second, got back on defense. Like, I break the all-time scoring record on logo 3, and I'm running up to the concession stand and partying. Like, I'm partying all around the floor. She's getting back on defense.
She got back on defense.
Also, someone call a timeout, let her enjoy the moment there. Like,
right.
Somebody, let's have.
That should have been a TV timeout, or not a TV time. Like.
Also, speaking of TV for that one, it's on Peacock.
Yeah, but you know what? That's not just a women's basketball thing. That's what they're trying to do.
I know, but
there's a freaking playoff game was on an NFL playoff game was on Peacock. That's ridiculous, man.
I'm aware. It's just tough for me, and it's a conversation we've had with the Apple deal with MLS in terms of growing sports.
I thought that was stupid. I thought that was ridiculously dumb.
So in terms of this moment for women's basketball, putting it behind a paywall, I don't think is putting it in front of as many eyes as it could potentially do. So that was my only issue with the fact that it's on. I understand why it's on Peacock.
All these sports are stupid. Major League Baseball is stupid. For Father's Day to have a Peacock-only game, I remember the story. Poor Tom Alvord, who does a tremendous job at night here at the station. Tom and his dad went to his grandfather's house, so Tom's dad's dad, on Father's Day to watch the Phillies. And his grandfather, who's in his 80s, doesn't have a smart TV. Couldn't watch the game. That's why they went. They wanted to go watch the Phillies game. It's 3 generations of Alvords. And they couldn't watch the game because of freaking Peacock. Like, it's just stupid. I know they're starting for money, and, it's all what it's all about. But to your point, growing a sport like baseball, you're trying to lower the age. Women's basketball, you want to try to increase the popularity of it. How about you have it on ESPN? But no, Peacock. And then the football game. Not that the football's ever going to suffer, but really, like, what are you guys doing? All right. Let's go to the phones. Go to Chris in Newark. What's up, Chris?
Hey, guys. It's pretty cool that you were talking about just the thing that I wanted to talk about when I called.
What's that?
The poll from last night.
Oh, yeah.
It's the reason why spring training is so great because, baseball season comes. Baseball is a nightly sport.
Yes.
For me, I want to watch it every day. And it's the one sport that changes my mood. So I'm getting kind of tired of this 9 games under in June. I want them to play 600 ball 6 months. And I want them to compete for the division and win the division. It's and then I'll take my chances. Win 100 games. I'll take my chances in the postseason.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I know the Dodgers and Braves haven't won anything, but, I don't know. Like, they're very good baseball teams. Just something's not worked out for them in the playoffs. And I don't know if that's because of pitching. I don't know if that's because of the bye round at first, and then the bats get a little cold. I don't know what that is. But, yeah, like, I don't want to always have to. I said this yesterday, Chris. I don't want to have to always rely on the Dodgers choking a series on one side of the bracket and the Phillies always having to upset the Braves. I don't want to always have to rely on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an older guy. I'm old school, Back when I was your age, 2 teams made it from each leg. the last couple of years, the Phillies would not even have made it, of course,
Right.
as everybody knows, But I want to see, 600 baseball every night, every month, And I don't know how they're going to avoid the malaise this year. I mean, Topper seems to have a different plan. We're going to play more, get more bats in spring training. There's no WBC and all that, but I'm just sick of being 15 games behind.
Yeah, and I wonder. It's funny. So I appreciate the call, Chris. I'm going to be going down to spring training in a couple of weeks, and if I get the chance to talk to Topper, which we did last year, I'm honestly curious what his mindset is with the rotation during spring. Now, I get it. Look, spring training in the grand scheme of things doesn't matter, right? Phillies, prime example. It didn't matter. Aaron Nola pitched 4 innings, max. That was the most amount of innings he pitched in a start in the spring last year. And they got to the NLCS, and he was tremendous in the wild card round, in the divisional series, and in his first start in the NLCS. But to Chris's point, these slow starts, a lot of it's probably because arms aren't stretched out all that much. And you brought up the Bilotti thing, pitching him every single day in 2 innings. It's great and all that your starting pitching is not taxed, but you are kind of taxing your bullpen early on because they have to pitch as many innings as they do. So what's that trend? Like the yin and the yang there. Like Gregory Soto I was talking about this with Ricky the other day. Gregory Soto was cooked by the end of the season. He pitched every single day because they needed to, because Nola's only going 5 innings. Wheeler's only going 5, and it's not because they're getting shelled. It's because they're not stretched out yet. And that's an organizational philosophy, and that's fine. But then you got to go 6-man rotation, or you have to have 2 guys in your bullpen that you can piggyback with or something like that. Like, there's got to be a different plan. Because to Chris's point, you can't be behind the 8 ball to the Braves every single time and just rely on the vibes carrying you through the NLDS.
That's right. Well, no, never mind. I'm not going to say it. Well, looking at the way they've constructed the 40-man, that's kind of where I'm trying to understand where they're going with the way they're going to manage this pitching staff, because I look at just, obviously knowing how many guys are going to shuffle up and down, and I think this was a quote from out of a different camp. It might have been the Orioles talking about, because they were running through some pitching issues already, some injuries to their staff. They're saying, well, the 13 pitchers that, we carry on opening day are not going to be the only 13 that pitch all season. So for me, trying to figure out exactly what their plan is, the Phillies, that is, in terms of what they have going on their 40-man, you look up and down that list of pitchers they've got. There's a lot of guys that you would expect, if they're going to have a role on this team and they're going to remain on that 40-man, they're going to be part of this group. Some of them obviously would be starting down in Lehigh and be, depth starters. But there are a number of guys that could be, your swing, 2-inning type guys, and it's not the sexiest of options. I'm not sitting here telling you that, the margins that they've worked on the 40-man roster have put together this, elite bullpen that we're all going to be thrilled about. But number of guys that have, maybe reached a certain peak as a starter prospect or as a, just pitcher working through systems as a starter. They realize now this guy's better in a, middle relief role and kind of worked his way up between levels. That, to me, is where I look at the 40-man right now and I say, okay, they've got some guys I'd be interested to see the way they're going to deploy them and the way, the way they fit. Putting a guy on a 40-man roster means something. That guy, we're going to expect to see some of these guys pitching in, 1 to 2 inning roles, and the number of guys they've got that can do that tells me that there's going to be some shuffling, I would imagine, early on in the season, because I think they still attack it similarly. I don't think they're going to sit here and change the way they've gone about spring training. Now they've gone back-to-back seasons where they've played deep into October. And
it's worked.
You've had
it's worked.
1A and 1B pretty much of, I think it's top 6 in terms of innings pitched since 2018, both Wheeler and Nola. Like, there's a reason that they're going to manage them the way they do. It's going to be infuriating.
Now, speaking of the manager, Chris in Nazareth wants to talk about the manager. What's up, Chris?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Good. How are you?
Good. Hey, number one, from everything I've read and everything I've seen last year, Wheeler and Nola did not throw enough innings in spring training. And if you remember when the season started, both of them struggled coming out of the gate.
Yeah.
So I don't understand.
But I can say they were great. They were great come playoff time, though.
Yeah, because they had to build up strength. Okay, and I don't understand when I hear people say, "Oh, the days of throwing 8-9 innings are over." Why is it over? What? Nobody can give me a good reason why it's over.
Well, I can tell you why it's over or on the way out. There are still pitchers that pitch complete games. Like, look, Michael Lorenzen threw a no-hitter earlier this year, right? Like, it still happens every once in a while. But here's how they look at it. They look at innings pitched. They look at the sports science that goes behind that, and you may not agree with it, but it's what.
You know what? I don't agree with it because, guys, I know how old you guys are. I'm 62. Okay, so I watched. Baseball is my life.
Yeah, you watch Steve Carlton pitch 9 innings every single outing, and he's a Hall of Famer.
Nolan Ryan.
Right. No, I get that, but that's just the direction of the sport right now. And the one big thing, this is the biggest thing, Chris. There is actual statistical data that backs this up for a lot of pitchers. The dreaded third time through the order, Chris.
This is the other thing I'm going to go to. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Today's pitchers, not all of them, but a lot of them, their mechanics are piss poor. Okay. When I say mechanics, I'm saying these guys have short strides to the plate. They don't finish. Okay. So I was at a coaching seminar and talked to a professional scout, and I said, hey, when a guy, whether it's a pitcher or a hitter, when they're going through a rough stretch, and a coach goes to the player and say, hey, you know what? I see this here. I see this happening. Let's, change this or do this. Not all of them, but some of these guys I was told, will say to that coach, talk to my agent.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, look, Chris, and that's the thing, man. And I appreciate the call, and I really respect that baseball's your life and you're 62, but you're talking Nolan Ryan, that's 40 years ago. Like that, it has changed. And that's the one, and it doesn't, you don't have to agree with it, right? Like you don't have to agree with it. It wasn't all that long ago where the 4 aces, that was 15 years ago. They were trying to pitch 7-8 innings every single night. And then you got the bridge to Lidge, and then you got Lidge himself, right? You know what I'm saying? It's just, that's the direction of the sport right now. So when Chris goes, what do you mean it's over? Well, it just is. If you, as he says, he watches baseballs all the time. Baseball's his life. Well, if you watch baseball, you see it happening. Just watch a game, and guys aren't pitching. Corbin Burns, who I wanted, and I was upset that they didn't get, he won Cy Young a few years ago when he was averaging, 5 innings a game?
Yeah.
And he won Cy Young.
And an idiot on this program cashed out of that.
Yeah, you're
their
wrong
future
for you to do that.
Yeah, I'm dumb. I know.
But that's just the way the sport is. The horse at the top of your rotation, it's just not the way it is anymore. Now, speaking of Corbin Burns and speaking of Zach Wheeler, so you'll probably get into this more next week. MLB's dropping their top 100 player list. And so far, 3 Phillies are in the top 100 up until 21.
Okay, I saw Schwarber.
Schwarber came in at
something.
He was 50-something. You're right.
He was near Christian Walker.
57.
Yeah.
He came in at number 57, dropping from 44 last year. Real Muto, 46th, dropping from 29 last year. Big drop. Still a great player. And then Wheeler moves up from 35 to 28. He's actually 1 spot ahead of Corbin Burns. And 2 spots ahead of maybe his future teammate, Blake Snell. Snell's 30th on this list.
Oh, no. Don't you start. Got eyes for 1 free agent pitcher.
So there's 20 spots left. I got to Harper's. That's a duh. Even though he's been disrespected in this league.
Bryce Harper, no longer a top 100 player. 6-1.
I'm guessing Turner has to be on here.
Does he?
I don't know. Is Trey Turner dropping from? He was in the top 20 last year. Is he all of a sudden out of the top 100?
I imagine he will be in there.
He has to be, dude.
I'm just saying. Could you? Here's an exercise for you. Let's figure it out in the next 12 minutes. Name 100 baseball players that had a better season than Trey Turner last year.
He's better than Tristan Casas, the first baseman of the Red Sox, who came in at 97.
Now let's go look at the numbers from last year.
Come
Let's see
on,
if that
man.
backs it up.
There's no way Trey Turner's not in the top 100.
No,
Do I think he's a top 20 player right now after based off of last year? No.
yeah, but he's going to be there.
He has to be.
He's going to be there. But
Castellanos not on here.
856 OPS for Casas, 24 homers.
Yeah, Turner had like 27 last
He
year.
was
Didn't he end up
came in
having,
third Rookie of the Year.
how many? He ended up having Trey Turner actually ended up having somewhat of a decent season. He had 26 bombs last year.
778 OPS.
Oh yeah, that's the big number.
And,
these days.
hey, him over there at short. Did you love the defense?
No, absolutely not.
All of a sudden,
is he really going to drop out of 100?
No, I don't think he's going to drop out of 100.
Castellanos will not be in the top 20, so he's out of it.
Yeah, he's out of it.
Nola's name not on here. Not a good enough regular season.
That's a disgrace. Now that's where we draw the line as a society. This is dropping Aaron Nola. I don't care. These top 100 lists are good for us in terms of reacting to things,
For content.
but I'll be honest, I don't care. This type of stuff.
You're not surprised that he's not in the top 100?
No, not really. I mean, you look at the regular season. I think people that forget about the fact that the Bats went 3 for 36 in the last two games will look at Game 6 and say, "Oh, look what he did," and that's just I think ignorant in that regard. No, I'm not surprised he's not in there.
I don't know. They have Sonny Gray at 49 on this list. I know he had a great year last year, but
He had a great year last year. It's top of mind.
yeah, I guess.
Do I think it's wrong he's not in the top 100? Yes. Am I going to lose sleep over it? No. I'm sorry, MLB.com. I'm not losing sleep over it. You know what? Maybe they have Aaron Nola in the top 10. Who's to say?
Highly doubt it.
Who's to say?
Let's go to Charlie.
610.
Charlie in California. What's up, Charlie?
Good morning, guys. I just wanted to comment on the last discussion regarding why they don't pitch as many innings as they used to.
Mm-hmm.
I go back to Robin Roberts, Don Newcomb. These guys today have been throwing breaking balls since they're 11 years old, and that really takes its toll on the arm, particularly the joints. And I think that's one of the reasons that some of them just can't go long innings and be effective. So, and that's why I think a lot of those careers have been shortened.
It
Well,
could be
that's
true.
my
Like
thought.
I've talked about this in the past. Like I have a guilty pleasure of watching the Little League World Series. I love it because it's just about the game, right? These kids are throwing curveballs at.
I know.
Like they're throwing curveballs and sliders, and I'm going, whoa! I remember when I was a kid, like I wasn't allowed to because it was going to hurt my elbow. Now, what did that do for me? I'm talking radio instead of actually playing, but still, like these kids are throwing curveballs at 12 years old.
I think it takes its toll. Larry Anderson, who pitched for the Phillies, they did a video of him. This is a long time ago, without a jersey on. You know, he's up, no clothes on, upper body, and slow motion showing throwing breaking balls and the reverberation and the muscles and the impact on the elbow. You couldn't see the impact on the elbow, but the arm really reverberates the muscles in it.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. And I also wonder, and thanks for the call, Charlie. Look, I know guys used to still throw hard back then, too. But, like, I also wonder how much of it is the increased emphasis of velocity and power pitching. That's got to mess up some arms, too. I mean, it's – look, was it Glass now, who the second they got rid of the sticky stuff got hurt and blames that for being the injury, right, because he had to change the way he was gripping the ball, but he was still throwing it the same way. I mean, at least that could be an excuse. I don't know. But I do think – power velocity is also an issue for some of these pitchers. Like they're trying to gear it up to 100 for 5 innings. It's gone are the days of let's ease in the first 2 innings, right? And late life, and all of a sudden you start to it looks like he's getting stronger as the start goes. Like those days are behind us.
Yes. I loved the sign Mike Rizzo put up. We don't care how fast you throw a ball for. Made me laugh. I love the philosophy of an organization that's just deciding not to throw the ball hard. What's going on in there?
Ricky's staring at me, probably because he was a power pitcher. I don't know. He's just staring at me.
Ricky would be my number one, top 100. He wanted to let you know he threw gas.
He did throw gas.
He wouldn't pop into your studio, but he popped into this one.
No, I meant back then, like when he was talking about like the Robin Robert, like in the 50s.
Oh.
I'm not saying back then, like 20 years from now.
No. Ricky wants everyone to know he threw the ball very fast, okay?
Yeah.
Oh. No, we got a clarification from Matt Menarek. No,
What?
he has gas. So he once threw gas. Now he's got different problems.
Oh, that's disgusting.
Yeah, I didn't want to know that.
All right, so real quick before we get out of here, because we've been doing the GM day, we got to talk about the ice too. I think the Flyers. So when Keith Jones first took over, I think he was on with Anthony. He was on these airways, and he was talking about his philosophy and how he's going to build his team. And he's saying, I'm starting with defensemen first. Gifted offensive defensemen. Which is something this team has lacked over the years. I know Provorov was a nice player, and it just was going downhill fast. That's why he's not here anymore. But, there were the Andrew McDonald's of the world. Like, they just were getting guys. Like, Shane Gostisbehere actually now kind of makes sense the way this league is trending. But I'm glad that that's something they're focusing on. Like, that is what they believe is the right way to build a team. I appreciate that. Obviously, goaltender is still an importance, and they got some stuff that they got to deal with right now. But the thing that I love most, what the Flyers are doing specifically, is they're just looking for freaking talented players. Like, drafting Matvei Michkov was not something this team would normally do. And I appreciate that they're doing what other good teams in the NHL are doing. Like, you need goal scorers. I won't say the name. There was somebody who was on as a guest on this station not many years ago. And somebody asked them who the goal scorer was on this team. This is like from the Flyers. It might have been last year's team. And he said it doesn't matter if you don't need a top goal scorer. You just need everybody to contribute. It's not true. You need a guy. You need a goal scorer, dude. Like, I'm watching Austin Matthews get a hat trick last night. Like, come on, man. Like, you need a goal scorer on your team. I get it. Having a bunch of guys that can contribute is a big deal, but I can't say, oh, man, if I just have, like, 620 goal scorers instead of 150 goal scorer and a bunch of guys that are also in the 20s, like, oh, we're fine. Like, no, man. Flyers haven't had many of those. Right, LeClaire?
Top line talent, good.
Yeah. Like, I know people love G, and I liked Claude Giroux. He shouldn't have been the best player on the team. Right? Like, he was a nice but very good player, right? Has had a tremendous career. I'm not taking that away from him. He's captain, man. Like, you need guys to go along with him. Coots is a nice player. You need guys that could just snipe. You need guys that could score. And that's something the Flyers just haven't had, and they've neglected that for years. And so I like the way they're going. And I think that's also the correct way to build a team, starting from the blue line, working your way in, making sure you have at least one legitimate goal scorer, at least, and then a goaltender. And I don't think that's something you can argue.
Yeah, you mentioned the investment defensively. I think that's a big piece of where some of the teams that you watch competing night in, night out. I think that's a big piece of what you do. You need that goal scorer. I think that was part of the reason we obviously reacted in a very Philadelphia way to Cutter and his, I don't want to call it a decision, but his mindset.
His cowardice?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think you reacted one way because you felt like you had.
He's a coward.
Yeah, he's a coward, but
dead to me.
When we take away the fact that he's a coward and dead to us, and we're going to root against him till the end of time. That was part of the excitement there of the difference maker in terms of scoring and being able to make things happen offensively for you. You need that top line, that top scoring talent, but I would take the investment there defensively, and obviously goaltender would be nice to have.
Yeah.
How many years we spent looking for?
Oh, we had one, and unfortunately things are going on right now. All right. So you have what's with the top 100 2023 list?
Oh, yeah. So I have last year's top 100.
Where was Turner at?
Turner was 11. You know where Harper was?
He was
17.
Oh, wow. Okay.
17.
He's still got to be in the top 20.
Yeah,
Harper.
Harper's going to be in the top 20.
I don't know about Turner.
Turner's going to be in the top 20.
He had 26 bombs. He ended up still having it.
They're going to look at the end of the season, say for the first time in Turner's career, this was the guy that was slump-proof, that went through a slump. He turned it on. Things changed, yada, yada, yada. They're going to put him at probably like 19.
So we're going to have 5 guys in the top 100. Schwarber, Real Muto, Wheeler, we already see, and then it's going to be Harper and Turner.
And Nola was 79 last year. Unranked after 2022.
So he dropped.
He
dropped. There's no way he climbed up from 79 to the top 20. I highly doubt it.
He didn't. I know. I'm just getting excited for the guy.
You're gonna have. We'll see 5 guys in the top 100, and I think they came out. They have 3 in the top 100 prospects. It was Painter and Crawford, and I forget who the other guy was, but they have 3 guys in the top 100 for the prospects. Look, it's gonna be a fun baseball season. It will be. It's gonna be like this year, content-wise, Ray. Get ready, man.
Oh, I'm prepared.
Think about it. All right. I got a minute left. The hockey team might make the playoffs, and it's early on in the rebuild, but, like, all right, what do they do next? Like, Flyers offseason is going to be interesting. Sixers offseason is going to be fascinating, and we still might see Joel Embiid come back and hopefully have a playoff run before we even get to the offseason. The Phillies it's World Series or bust again, or NLCS or bust for people. What are they going to do at the trade deadline? And then the Eagles, unlike last year, will have an interesting offseason. Last year sucked in terms of talking about the Eagles during the offseason. There was nothing to it, and that was great, right? Because everything seemed to be going well. And over the next 10 months, there's going to be a lot of stuff to talk about with these 4 teams. As I keep on saying, never a dull moment in Philadelphia, man. Just when you think it's dull, all of a sudden something happens, right? Like the Eagles have a collapse when they're 10-1. But all of a sudden,
I was rooting for a dull December. I really was.
Yeah, it would have been nice. We got a lot coming up over the next 10 months for the rest of this year, so it's going to be a lot of fun. Everybody have a great, great, great weekend. I'll be back, not next week, following week. Best show ever coming your way next, right here, 97.5 The Fanatic.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Stadium Series.